going to call a meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. Today is Thursday, January 18th, 2018. We're also calling the Redevelopment Authority and the Board of Health and the joint meeting in Carson City School District Board of Trustees to order on our part of that one. It's just at 8:30 a.m. We're at the Community Center at the Sierra Room, 851 East William Street. We're also on the internet and on cable TV where you get cable TV. Can we have a roll call? Kathy, thanks.
Supervisor Abad, Supervisor Bonkowski, Supervisor Bagwell, here. Supervisor Barrett, here. Mayor Kroll, quorum is present.
Pat Propster, I didn't see you back there. You're hiding back there.
Yes, I was, sir.
You never hide.
Try to mess you up there. Sorry.
All right. Thanks, Pat.
Well, good morning to y'all. I looked at your agenda. I see the room is filled, and we need prayer. I was looking at that and seeing how many items. There's more items on there than the Old Testament has books. So we'll be praying for you today. Definitely. It's 18:18, which is a kind of a cool number. Matthew 18:18 says this: "For assuredly and solemnly I say, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you declare on earth will be declared in heaven." And this is these binding and loosing are legal terms. It goes on to say in 19, "Again I say to you, where two or more are gathered in my name, in agreement with one another, in harmony with one another, understanding one another, you can ask anything, and it will be in the will of God, and it will be done for them. For where two or three are gathered in my name, meeting together as my followers, I am there in their midst." So Lord, we come to you and we want to agree this morning in a prayer that you taught us to pray. When the disciples were confused about how to pray, you said, pray like this: "Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever." Lord, in those words, we ask you that you would make yourself so evident today, that you would lead, you would guide, you would protect, you would give wisdom, you would give understanding, you would give knowledge. Lord, there would be unity in conversation, there would be understanding, there would be clarity of articulation, Lord. And Father, we just ask you for this board as well as us in this room. God, we would honor you and glorify your name. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, sir.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning? As we go through the pledge, I'd ask that we all kind of think about the words we're saying here today.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Blessings today.
All right, we'll now move on to item number 5, public comment. This is the time for public comment. We have public comment now at the end, and we have at the beginning and the end of all the other ones is the Redevelopment Authority, and I think we have it at the, I know we do at the school district. And we usually take public comment as we go through. Anybody on public comment at this time? Anybody? Okay, all right, then let the record reflect that there's nobody to speak at public comment. Let's take up item 6, potential approval of the minutes of January 4th, 2018.
Mayor, I move to approve the minutes of the Carson City Board of Supervisors for January 4th, 2018, with one previously submitted minor correction to 25B.
Second. There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Supervisor Bunkowski's, do we have an IT person here to help him get on so he can vote on his machine?
Emailed Mr. Mayor and they should be on their way.
Okay.
In the
Now?
meantime, I'll vote for him. I'll make sure
All right.
that his vote's recorded.
For everybody up here, what we're talking about is we're all on, but for some reason the IT department decided to put password protect. So his reputation precedes him. So some of us will be voting
the Chinese from hacking in.
All right, that's what we're talking about. That's happened to me too. You know, that's all right. All right, let's take up item 7, the agenda. Any changes to the agenda?
No change.
Okay. Any board members want anything changed to the agenda? All right, seeing none, unless there's an objection, we will take the agenda as published. Now let's all move to the, for the first one, let's just stay here on the presentation of the National Radon Month. Item A, Nadia, Who's doing this? Who do we have? Come on up and introduce yourselves. I'm sorry. Both of you, come on up.
What do you want him to say?
No, just sit down.
Maybe, I know you want to speak and I know you want to say some things, but actually, I think, rather than that, why don't we all come down and I'll read the proclamation and give it to you, okay?
Sounds good. Okay.
Test.
Thank you. So who do we have here with you?
Susan Howe,
Susan?
Nadia Noel,
And you?
and I.
Right, I got it. Okay. All right. This is a proclamation, National Radon Action Month, January 2018. Whereas many Carson City residents don't know about radon, yet need to know for the safety and well-being of their families, as radon is a colorless, odorless, naturally occurring radioactive gas that is the leading cause of lung cancer among non-smokers. How many people in the room have done a radon test? See, yeah. How many board members? Okay, all right. So have I, all right? All right. Whereas the United States Environmental Protection Agency estimates that 21,000 people in the U.S. die each year from lung cancer caused by indoor radon exposure, and lung and bronchus cancer kills more people in a year than any other cancer. Did not know that. And whereas radon kills more people than secondhand smoke, drunk driving, falls in home, or drowning or home fires. And whereas any home in Carson City may have elevated levels of radon, even if neighboring homes do not, and living in a home with an average radon level of 4 picocuries per liter of air poses a similar risk of developing lung cancer as smoking about half a pack of cigarettes a day. And whereas, how many, when you did your test, how many didn't make it, fell above 4 picocuries? Anybody? Good. Steve did. Actually, I did too a little bit, and so now I'm, checking it out here. All right. Whereas testing is the only way to know if a radon problem exists, and testing is easy and inexpensive, and when identified problems can be fixed. And whereas the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension, the Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health, and the United States Environmental Protection Agency support efforts to encourage all Carson City residents to test their homes for radon, mitigate radon problems, and have new homes built with radon-reducing materials and features. Now, therefore, I, Robert Kroll, Mayor of Carson City, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim January 2018 as National Radon Action Month in our own community of Carson City, dated today. Thank you. All right. All right. So come on up here. Do you want to say a few words first?
Could I?
Yeah,
Okay.
do it. Come on.
Okay, with this? Okay. So thank you so much for your support of our service to this area and for all that the proclamation did state. Because testing is the only way to know if you have any radon issue in your home, University of Nevada Cooperative Extension offers free radon test kits during January and February. It's also January's National Radon Action Month across the nation. In Carson City, test kits are available in 2 places. The Cooperative Extension Office at 2621 Northgate Lane, and also the second year we're offering them at the Carson Tahoe Cancer Resource Center. They did that for us last year for the first time. Residents can also get a kit at the Carson City Senior Center on, let me see, I forget, at January 24th at 6:30 p.m. So testing is very important in Carson City because 39% of those testing have found elevated radon, and that's at 4 or above. Carson City is the 3rd highest radon potential in the state, and the zip code 89703 has the highest potential of all the zip codes. A more important message, though, is that every home can have a different radon level, and so test statistics and maps and your neighbor's results are no indication of what you're going to have. And we've distributed over 4,000 test kits in this county, and 60% of them have been used. So that's a large amount. But nearly 2,000 homes have been tested, and that only amounts to 8% of your housing units. And at least 100 homes have been mitigated or fixed of those needing mitigation. So there's test kits in each of your bags, and I hope that you can either use them or pass them on to somebody else, because they cost $10 a piece now. And finally, I'd like to conclude that the 2018 International Building Codes are being discussed right now amongst committees, and amendments are being proposed. And I hope this year that perhaps the Appendix F of the International Residential Code could be adopted. It has to be adopted separately from the rest of the building code. And Appendix F is the radon control methods. It would require all new homes to be built with radon systems in them. It's a protection against lung cancer for those homeowners. And the cost is predicted to be less than $1,000, but when you compare that to several $100,000 that you're buying a home and lung cancer, I feel that that's minimal. And that's about all I have. Thank you, and I hope that you can maybe support that adoption in the future. Thank you.
$1,000 per home?
Less than $1,000 to put in a fan and piping system.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's just not the test side.
To prevent it from entering your home.
I got you. Let's think about that a little bit.
Thank you.
All right, come on up here. Come on, let's get a picture. Okay? Thank you. Let's now go to one of our special presentations this morning to designate the Employee of the Quarter for Carson City. We do this, we've started doing this every quarter, and the city manager has donated a part of his increase in salary that he received the last time we went through salaries, and to help, not to help, but to provide a little gift, a monetary gift, to those who participate and who receive Employee of the Quarter. So could I ask David Bruchetta to come on up, and then as well as Kelly. Kelly? Good morning. Come on up here. David, you want to say a few words about, you nominated Kelly, correct?
Yep.
All right. Why don't you talk a little bit about why?
Well, first, I'm glad that everyone turned out here for Kelly's. This is quite a turnout, so thanks. So, Kelly works in our environmental control department. She has quite a diverse job responsibilities, but, in this case, what she did is she worked very closely with the Carson City School District, and there was an implementation of a grant through the Division of Environmental Protection. And it was to do some water quality testing in the schools, to ensure that our kids are safe. And so this was beyond the scope of her job, but what she did is she worked closely with the school, and she helped develop this program, or helped work with them to develop this program. And they've done the testing, and it was a grant through the state. And so Kelly helped facilitate that because of her background and experience, and it was just a great opportunity for customer service.
Wonderful. Hang on, Kelly. Now we got to give you some things here. If you could help me hold on to that just for a second.
Sir.
This is a proclamation recognizing Kelly Hale, Environmental Control Foreman, as the Employee of the Quarter. Kelly, this is for you. This reads as follows. Whereas Carson City's quality of life attracts talented and loyal employees, and whereas every day Carson City employees put to use their broad array of skills and expertise with efficiency and integrity for the benefit of everyone in our city. And whereas Carson City values its employees and acknowledges that recognizes employees for their hard work and dedication is critical to the future health and growth of our city. And whereas we owe a substantial debt of gratitude to the Carson City employees and applaud those who go above and beyond their loyalty and ability. And whereas Kelly Hale, Environmental Control Foreman, assisted the Carson City School District with the implementation of their safe drinking water testing program in the elementary schools by using her extensive knowledge and training in water sampling, and in doing so contributed to the fulfillment of the city's mission, values, and vision. And whereas on behalf of the City of Carson City, our Board of Supervisors, which is here, it's an honor for you to be selected for this award by your co-workers, and it speaks highly of your work performance and how it is perceived by others. Now, therefore, I, Robert Kroll, Mayor of Carson City, on behalf of all of us, the Board of Supervisors here and the entire community, celebrate the special trust and confidence in the loyalty, integrity, and ability of Kelly Hale, and do hereby proclaim her to be Employee of the Quarter for Carson City, and encourage everyone to join in this special recognition. Kelly, this is on behalf of your community. It's a proclamation. The words obviously mean something, but know that it comes from our heart, and thank you for what you're doing. And also, I'll give you this. Hold on to that a minute. And just to show that it's not just words, we have 2 certificates here, one for $200 and one for $50. The $50 comes from Mr. Bruchetta here. We give $50 to the person who makes the nomination. He's decided to give you that $50 and $200 from the city. Okay, as I said, these funds come from the city manager, who's donating a portion of his salary to make these available. So in addition to the words, have some fun with $250 too. Okay. All right. So come on up here and let's get a picture. David, come on up too. Do you have your family with you? Anybody here? Okay.
She has environmental control team, her group.
Okay. Who's back there? You want environmental control? Come on up. All right. Let's come up. We'll get organized for a picture here. Now what are we doing? Longevity. I'll blame it on somebody else. Yeah. I'm just told that even though I said that we were on streaming and on cable, I guess we are not. We're working on it. We should have it back up here shortly. Is that right? I didn't hear that yes very loudly.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, I got that one now. I'm used to that one. Okay. This is for 5 years of service, Lorena Garcia Gonzalez. Where is Lorena here? Is that for 5 years? Nope. Victoria Chandler? There you are. How are you this morning? Very good. We're going to get a little snow today, huh? Victoria, on behalf of grateful community and our Board of Supervisors, please accept this longevity award in recognition for 5 years of continuous and dedicated service to making our community a better place to live, work, play, and just have some fun. Thanks. Okay, let's go back here. Rick Cooley. How you doing, Rick? You ready for the storms and all that stuff?
I'll believe when I see it.
You've been here too long. Rick, everybody knows you here. Now, they know all of us here, but in recognition of 5 years of continuous and dedicated service to Carson City, please accept our sincere congratulations and appreciation for doing what you do to make Carson City a better place to live, work, play, drive, do all kinds of things. So thanks, Rick. Come on. Oh, there you go. There you go.
He goes by Mark.
Huh?
He goes by Mark.
Mark Puard. Mark. Did I pronounce the last name correct? How are you doing this morning?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Got the good shirt on, too. Mark, in recognition and appreciation for 10 years of continuous and dedicated service to Carson City, please accept this longevity award from all of us, your entire community, and your board for doing what you do to make Carson City a better place to live. I see you guys out and around all the time.
Yes, sir.
All right. Come on up here. Efren Mendoza. Yeah, good morning. How you doing today? Keeping us safe? Trying? Doing better than that. Okay. Efren, this is in recognition and appreciation for 10 years of service to our community. Thank you for helping make Carson City a better place and a safer place to live, work, and play. And thanks for 10 years of great service to our community. We live in a great community. A lot of that's because of you. Thanks. Okay. Daniel Gomes. How you doing, Daniel? All right. Here's another one of Carson City's finest, huh? Daniel, this is for on behalf of the entire community of Carson City and our Board of Supervisors. Let us give you this longevity award for 10 years of continuous and dedicated service to our community. Thanks for keeping us safe. And you guys, like everyone in our community, and all our employees, out all the time. I know that you guys, and I'll be talking to others who get this award. You know, sometimes, you know, you get calls for service and things like that. You really never know what's going to happen when you get there. You folks do these things with a high degree of professionalism. And I'd like to say, and I believe this, that we're one of the best, if not the best, department in Nevada, and probably maybe even in the United States. So thank you on behalf of a grateful community. Thank you. Fran Densler. Good morning, Fran. How are you? Oh, that didn't sound very loud. All right. You get dressed for going out there. All right. How's the district court doing today? Good. Sort of okay? Did you hear that? Where are the judges? Sort of okay? Huh? Sort of okay. Fran, in recognition and appreciation for your 10 years of continuous and dedicated service to Carson City, please accept this longevity award on behalf of your entire community and our board. And thank you very much. And keep the courts on the straight and narrow, will you? Come on back here. All right. Elaine Bergenheier. Good morning. Did I pronounce that correct? Okay. Elaine, in recognition of and appreciation for 10 years of continuous and dedicated service to Carson City, please accept this longevity award on behalf of all of us. Thanks for making Carson City a better place to live, work, play, have fun, raise kids, do everything that's important to have a good sense of community in Carson City. So on behalf of all of us, thank you. There you go. Melanie Bradingham. Morning, Melanie. How are you this morning? Huh?
I'm doing great.
Oh, say that. Okay, now you're doing great. All right. See that? We all should say that. It's a great day. Melanie, on behalf of the the community of Carson City, our Board of Supervisors, and all of us here in this room here today, please accept our Appreciation due for 10 years of continuous and dedicated service to our great community. 10 years. Thank you very much, and keep up. We look forward to more years, even now. 10 more. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Donna Milton. Donna, good morning, Donna. How are you? Hanging in there. Okay, that's good. Donna, on behalf of our board, on behalf of your community, please accept our sincere appreciation and gratitude for 20 years of continuous 20 years. So feel like 20 years? 5 more years? You want 5? They say there. I hear they say 5 more, huh? Donna, you can see that you're tremendously appreciated by those sitting here in the front row and all of us in here. They're asking for not just 20 years, but 20 more. So please accept this longevity award on behalf of all of us, and thanks for doing what you've done for Carson City over all these years. Thank you. Okay. All right. Matt Donnelly. Matt. Up, here he comes. How you doing this morning?
Good, man.
Carson City Blues, that's good. How's the fire department doing today?
Excellent.
See that?
Nice and quiet.
Great. Nice and quiet? Did you hear that?
Okay.
Where, Chris?
It won't last long.
Yeah, where's the chief? Where's Chris, or the deputy back there? Huh? Come on, guys, all right. Matt, on behalf of all of us in this room and your community and the Board of Supervisors, please accept this longevity award for 20 years of continuous and dedicated service to our great community. As I said before, our staff members, are out all the time. You folks are out all the time. We wouldn't be where we are in this community without you and Blue here. So on behalf of all of us, please accept this award with our appreciation for 20 years of keeping us safe. As I said before, when you guys get called out, it's like everyone who gets called out to an emergency situation. You don't really know what you're going to get into until you get there. And you folks do these things with tremendous aplomb, professionalism, and you make Carson City a great place to live. Thanks.
So I know it's kind of tight, but if we have any family, I think there's family and friends, coworkers who want to get in the picture, now's the chance to come on up.
Everybody wants to get in. Come on. Let's see if we can get
Okay, awesome.
Messes up the road when you guys.
Thank you, Mayor. Have a good day.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You have a disclosure. You got your disclosure before the.
Still,
That's fine.
I think I can do that.
still working the video, Mr. Mayor.
That's me. I'm doing business as to the way the federal government says I'm allowed to. I rent a piece of property out at Oliver Machine. I've been doing my dumpsters, doing my scrap metal, helping the city out here for 22 years. I came in front of the city once a few years back when you wanted to outsource the dump to Recology in California. I'm not saying my comments had much to do with you not doing that, but the city workers at the dump and others think that it had something to do with it. There was a front page article about me. So now I'll get to what's happened to me and what the city has done to me, which may cost me my life, literally my life. One of your agencies went and got a hold of Oliver Machine. And the first thing I got was a phone call message that I was probably going to be evicted off of my property. I called my landlord's representative, and she said that the city was upset with me for having my firewood yard, which they okayed. 67 years old, one leg. I cut firewood for a living because I only make about $700 a month disability. 10 years I supplied the people of Carson City with firewood. No employees, did it myself. Been compared to Paul Bunyan. Front page, or an article in the newspaper even talked about me doing that. Getting ready to retire because I broke my prosthesis, fell against my truck and broke my neck. I think that was in about March of 16. So I was told I have to calm down and quit doing this stuff. You can't do what you're doing. But again, I only get $700 a month. So one of your employees got a hold of my landlord and said that I'm not really sure what they said. The message was that my material is outside the fence, my scrap and my firewood. And I'm to call my landlord. I call my landlord, I don't get a hold of my landlord. I get a text back from my landlord, how dare you get rid of the firewood. Get 5 days. I got rid of the firewood, 5 days, did as I said, took a loss. Then I got an eviction notice. So then we went to court. So then in court, the testifying from the representative of Oliver Machine said that she told me that I was going to be evicted because they were afraid I had flammable material in my yard. But the first message I got on my phone still says scrap metal and firewood outside the yard. City has never got a hold of me. City has never sent me a letter. City in 22 years has never wrote a ticket to me, summoned me to court for anything that I'm doing. Now, I'm disabled. According to the federal law, I think I got 90 days to do stuff. I think I'm given 3 times to do something, and I'll describe why. Do you think they set a crosswalk for you people that aren't disabled to get across the street? Or do they set that crosswalk for somebody that's in a wheelchair that'll take 4 or 5 times longer? Do you think you can all run outside this building if it catches on fire faster than me? Anybody going to help me? No, I'm probably going to get trapped in here and die if something happens. So I'm giving a length of time now to get my stuff off the property. The city's the one that started this. I'm told, and I'll ask the city to step up and answer this question, I'm told the city flew a drone over my property. Did the city fly a drone over the property I rent?
I don't know, we're looking into what it is. Who from the city contacted you, if anybody?
I don't, nobody from the city has contacted me. I do not have a name. I'm being evicted. I cannot move my property. My will be done tomorrow. I have a right to defend my property and myself from everything. I can't move my stuff in the amount of time. I need the community and the city's help. I've been helping the community and the city for years. I want to retire. I want to get out of here. But if I don't have my stuff, I'm done. The only way I can save my stuff for my children is to take my life. can you please straighten up what you messed up? Because I did nothing wrong. I've never got a letter from the city. I've never got a letter from my landlord. I've never been told not to do this, not to do that, clean up this, don't do that. Now, some of the material in the back of my yard is from the city. The city dumped the material on the property I lease for me to dispose of it. Culvert, 3, 4, 5 years ago when they were doing a project either at the bow and arrow range or at the shooting range or up by the dump. The city workers came, asked if I could dispose of this. It was just a few pieces of culvert. I said yes. Now the city is griping about something they put on the property. I don't know what more to say.
Help me understand. I get where you're coming from. Help me understand who from the city is talking, and how do you know that the city's involved in it as opposed to just your landlord? What's going on there?
Because when we went into court for me to ask for time to get rid of my stuff, then the representative from Oliver Machine said a city worker told her, contacted them.
Yeah. Okay.
Mayor, we can have community development work with them and get to the bottom of this to find out who's involved.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to give the gentleman my card. I'll work it, Mr. Mayor. If you contact me either by phone or by email, or we can chat in the hallway, I'll take a look into it.
Okay, now I called the city mayor's office or the city manager's office and one of the secretaries, and I don't know who it is. Now, if somebody wants to fess up and say who talked to Ed Steele about a month or so and blew me off and didn't give my phone number to either him or him, if you ladies would like to say, I think it was the mayor's office I called, but it could have been the city manager's office.
Yeah, with all due respect, Mr. Steele, not every lady is a secretary.
I understand.
There's an attorney. She's the deputy city manager. She's the chief deputy clerk.
I said it wrong.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
an ignorant person.
So I'm going to give you my contact info, and I'll talk to you out in the hallway. I'll be more than happy to look into this. I don't know anything about it, and I'll be very happy to try and help you out.
Now, does the city fly drones over people's property? I still would like that answered.
I don't know if they did. We do from time to time. It's certainly possible.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Grab
you.
his card. All right. Thank you, Mr. Steele. Okay, any other public comment? All right. Let's then move on to the consent agenda. I understand we want to pull item 9B from the consent agenda. That deals with the airport, so we'll take a motion unless there's other things that need to be pulled from the consent agenda. Anybody in the audience want anything pulled for special discussion? I don't see any, so we'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as published with the exception of 9B, and we'll take that up in a minute.
I move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 9B as published.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, all right. All right, let's now move on to item number 11. We'll pick up 9B now, and then let me read a disclosure for myself here. When we discuss 9B, NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain for participating when I have a disqualifying conflict. Steve Takis is legal counsel to the Airport Authority. I work with Steve at the law firm from which I retired, but no longer have a substantial and continuing business relationship with Steve. Therefore, a reasonable person in my position would not be materially affected by this past relationship. Additionally, Steve is here for the approval of an airport lease, something he must do pursuant to statute and a routine matter before the board. Therefore, the matter will in no way be affected by my past relationship with Steve, and so I will be participating in this matter. Okay. All right. Mr. Takis, go. Want to tell us what's going on? Then I'm sure I got.
Yes, this is an airport lease. We followed the process in NRS 244 that the city and the county follow when they put areas of land out for lease. We did that this last summer, and we obtained a bid, which we approved in September. We generated a lease, sent it up to the Board of Supervisors for approval, but at that stage we got some very constructive feedback from some members of the board and from city staff, so we took it back to the Airport Authority and reapproved it, and the reapproved lease is what we have in front of you. I do want to indicate that I did find an error in the lease. There was a clause missing, and it's an important clause because it was in our request for proposals when we put it out to bid, and it's been a portion of our other leases, and that provision in the lease allows the leaseholder, the tenant who develops the airport property and builds hangars, it allows them to assign the lease to a hangar owners association so that hangar owners can purchase ownership interests in the hangars. I would also note that there is reference to the word condo in the lease. That has a connotation of residential. There is no residential at the airport. It's not zoned for it. Title 19 doesn't allow it. None of our leases allow it. And so I've actually prepared a replacement page that takes out the word condo and simply says hangar ownership. And so that should clarify that. And I'm here to answer any questions you have, but I would request that, subject to any additional questions you have, that you approve the lease subject to the replacement of those two pages so that we can correct those two errors.
Thank you, Steve. The reason I wanted to pull this was because I'd like to go through the construction timeline and how it's tied to the rent payments, which is item 3A and B. Actually, it looks like there's 2, 3 B's. It looks like it goes 3A, 3B, 3B, 3C. So we can add that to the list of typos to correct. Just saw that. So anyway, if you could run through the construction schedule, the timing of the phases, and how that affects the rent.
Yes. The way it was leased is we leased the entire parcel, but we agreed to take bids that involved building out the parcel in phases, in large part because the demand for hangars, new hangars, is somewhat unknown. The developer believes there's demand there. I personally think there's demand there based on our inventory of hangars and aircraft on the airport. So what we did is the proposal that came back to us was to build the project in 3 phases. And so what the lease requires is that it requires the tenant to pay the full amount of the rent, the 24 cents per square foot, which is what the appraisal showed the value to be for phase 1, and then a lower rate for 10 cents a square foot for phase 2 and 3. Now, with regard to phase 1, the tenant only has 1 year to complete the construction, at which point they have to start on the construction of phase 2, and at which point phase 2 jumps to the 24 cents. And the same thing applies to phase 3. So in essence, it's, I guess you could think of it kind of as a lease for the phase 1 with an option on phase 2 and 3. Now, if the developer is unable, if the demand isn't there and the developer is unable to see past phase 1, the developer has the right to turn phase 2 and phase 3 back to us. He must do a record of survey and take care of the other requirements that we would have to reparcel those sections. And then we would hold on to those sections until the growth or the demand occurs.
Thank you, Stephen. And that's exactly what I thought the assumption was that it would be similar to an option on the balance of the property, but because it's only one parcel, you wouldn't be able to option off a portion of a parcel. So I agree with the way it's structured. Under paragraph 5, under improvements, and that also ties into the construction. So the 2 years of execution of this lease shall commence all construction. So can you tie that now back to, you said that they had to start within 1 year on phase 1, but this says 2 years. So can you clarify that?
Right. the tasks that need to be started within the first year and actually need to be, the bottom line is the construction needs to be completed in a year. That's what the tenant understands. That's what the provisions, the earlier provisions on rent trigger. In the event there was some reason for a delay, equipment problem or labor shortage or some act of God or something, what this lease allows is it allows us to stretch it out to 2 years. But as a practical matter, we don't expect it to occur that way. The developer has geared everything, including his engineering, and is working on the building approvals and those kinds of things with the expectation that he will be complete in a year. In fact, his intention is to be complete sometime during this summer's construction period, so it should be well within a year.
So that would be the best case, and the worst case would be it would be 4 years to complete construction on the third phase.
Correct, but keep in mind that at the end of a year, if there is a delay, he's paying us the higher rate. So.
Then just a note, under item 6, there's 2 item Ds.
I will get that fixed.
Okay, and then the date, the year on the signature page needs to be changed to 2018. And that was it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Anybody? Want to try a motion with those changes, or you want to put it? Okay, go.
I move to approve the airport lease with all the changes entered into the record between the Carson City Airport Authority and Sierra Skyway, Inc.
Second.
Motion, second on the motion, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let's take up item 12. Kenny, this is to consider the separation of titles of Assistant Sheriff Grade PS4 and Under Sheriff Grade PS5 pursuant to the 2014 Pontifex study. You want to tell us what's going on here?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Board. This is a possible action item to separate the titles of the Assistant Sheriff, which is a grade PS4, and the Under Sheriff into a grade PS5 pursuant with the 2014 Pontifex study and recommendations, and to establish the top range of the PS5. In real short, I practiced on that whole thing. In very short, when we did the Pontifex study, this is a blast from the past, the PS5 position was designated for the undersheriff. We did not implement that. I did not implement that. These are positions that are afforded to me by the Carson City Charter. I had lumped all of the positions into one box, if you will, and separated those that were sworn and non-sworn, which created the salary range. Unfortunately, in doing that, that created a compaction within the organizational chart and the chain of command. After reviewing, obviously going back many years back to Mayor Marv, whenever a vacancy does occur, that you give a critical analysis of those positions. Is it correct? Is it worthy? Is it needed? And so on. And as we went through this past year, I sat down with Ms. Burketta many times in HR, reviewing this position and the salaries. I did determine that it was prudent back then, and it is today, to move that undersheriff position into the PS5 and establish the pay range. The pay range studied is commensurate with the geographical region. It is neither at the high end nor the low end.
Questions? Supervisor Barrett.
Thank you. As I understand it, your own salary is set by Constitution and is lower than this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I understand that. Can you tell me, we just recently had the Justices of Peace before us, and in 19 their salary go to $145,000 annually. Why should this, and there may be a good reason, why should this be higher?
That's a good question. These are public safety officers, all of the officers, the undersheriff, myself included. They are responsible for a range of responsibilities here in this community, including responding to very dangerous circumstances. Each of them carries a certification to carry out those peace officer authorities within the community, in addition to running, if you will, at an executive level, the Public Safety Sheriff's Office.
Good morning, Melanie Bruchetta, HR Director. The salary is recommended at what we brought forth today based on internal and external equity. So for the justices of the peace, we weren't involved, HR was not involved in setting those salaries, so I can't comment on that. However, I can tell you that by setting the salary at what's recommended today, it falls within our current compensation range. We actually have a D22 position, which is a public safety position at that level, and it's, in my opinion, equivalent to that position within the city. It also matches the external equity with both Washoe County and Douglas County.
Thank you.
Under the explanation of fiscal impact, it says approximately $13,000, which will be funded within the current sheriff's office budget. So does that mean that the implementation of this position, that you're going to place the position in service at a salary that's $13,000 higher than the current position? And are we placing the person at the low end of the range or the high end of the range? So where's the $13,000 based on?
Half a year, January to June.
But it's an increase, right? It's an increase of what?
Okay, so the undersheriff was promoted into the position at the top of the current PS5 range. So the $13,000, I believe, is coming from the sheriff's office current general fund budget for this year.
Right, I'm just trying to get through the numbers, not where the money's coming from. I just wanted to know if it says that the fiscal impact is $13,000, $13,000 in relation to what other number? That has to be the current salary, right?
That's $13,000 this half of a year.
Right, so it's an increase of $13,000 over the previous salary, but only for a half a year.
For the half of the year.
Can we clarify so that the top of the PS4 is $142,000, the top of a PS5 is $159,000. So for an entire year, it's about $12,000, $13,000, but you also have all the PERS benefits and those activities on that additional dollar. So
this is a fiscal impact for budgetary purposes,
Correct.
not in reality.
Correct.
Thank
Correct. It's a half a year because the person took the position in January, right? And I'm assuming that you're going to retro it to the date. That wasn't in here, but are we retroing the pay from the effective date of today or when the undersheriff took the position?
I would love to retro it to the date. The challenge is you hadn't approved it back then.
I just wanted to clarify on the record, again, that this pay would start
to make it coincide
today?
with the date of this vote.
Okay, just want to clarify. And I think just to have an understanding so that the public gets the issue is it normal for us to put about approximately a 10% differential between people that you supervise? So I don't think the public maybe didn't understand that you're trying to eliminate a compaction issue, that the supervisor makes the same money as the other assistant sheriffs, and you're trying to have the supervisor make about 10% more. Am I correct?
That is basically correct. The decision I made back then created an unintended consequence of compaction, where the assistant sheriff was making basically the same amount of money as the undersheriff, but the undersheriff having the additional responsibilities.
So let me follow up on what Supervisor Bonkowski was talking about. Is there a raise being given to someone here as we do this?
Yeah, excuse me?
Is there a raise? Is someone receiving a raise? A $13,000 raise?
The undersheriff will receive a raise.
Okay. All right. Public comment on this issue? Board? We okay? Anybody want to try a motion?
I'll make it.
Motion's in order.
I move to approve the separation of the titles of Assistant Sheriff Grade PS4 and Undersheriff Grade PS5 pursuant to the 2014 Pontifex study and recommendations, and to establish the top of the range for the PS5 position Undersheriff to $159,349.15.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
No.
1 no, 4 yes, 1 no. Did you, that show up on there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Did it? Okay, all right. All right, let's move on to item 13. This is a presentation from Western Nevada Development District from the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. Ron.
So, Mr. Mayor, if you could just hold in place for a moment, I'm gonna put the brief up on my computer.
We'll take 5 minutes and go out, so put your stuff up and get ready to go.
Okay, very good.
Board of Supervisors back to order. We're on item number 13, Western Nevada Development Authority, discussion of comprehensive economic development strategy. Ron, come on up. How you doing?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Supervisors. For the record, I'm Ron Rediel, Executive Director for Western Nevada Development District, and want to provide an update on our comprehensive economic development strategy. We've been going out to the cities and counties making this presentation. Our board president, Ed Lawson, who's on the Sparks City Council, has been accompanying me to these meetings, but he had a scheduling conflict this morning, so you get the Ron show instead of the Ed and Ron show. What I'd like to focus on would be page 2 of the presentation that was sent to the city, focusing on the SEDS. If I speak an acronym and you need an explanation, feel free to interrupt. With the SEDS is a comprehensive economic development strategy for the region. It's a ground from the grassroots up development. We do this through the district board. Our board of directors is comprised of elected officials, staff, as well as private sector representation. So this is the SEDS Strategy Committee. We take input from other entities, other groups. It's a regionally driven, regionally based economic development strategy. One of the greatest things I think that can come out of this is regional collaboration. We have a number of goals within the SEDS and strategies. We did have a really good board discussion in October, and we did change one of our goals to be regional collaboration. If you look at what's going on in the region, I think everybody's familiar with what's been occurring, particularly since 2014. Within the region, the regional collaboration becomes very, very important, and I think this is one of the things, values coming through the district and through the SEDS project itself. Gives you an opportunity to know your region, gives an opportunity to provide the project listing, has goals and strategies which are identified again through our board process. And what I want to point out is that a public or private entity that is applying for public or private sector funds, if they can cite their project as meeting one of the goals or one of the strategies in the SEDS, that will help strengthen that application because it's showing that it's a part of a multi-jurisdictional planning process, and it's something that has not just been pulled out of the air to apply for funding. Becomes particularly important with USDA and their programs through rural development, their business and industry loan program, for example, and some of their other economic development programs that they have, because in the 2014 Farm Bill, the Carson City office for rural development through USDA and throughout the country, they may assign up to 20 additional points on applications that can be shown that they are part of a multi-jurisdictional planning process. Carson City office, I know in discussions with them, have used the SEDS at least 4 times to score those additional points. And particularly when it comes to the business and industry loan program, the loan guarantee program the USDA has, those 20 points become very, very crucial because those kinds of applications are competing on a national level. But any public sector application that's being submitted or for private by a nonprofit, cite the SEDS, look at the SEDS. We have one of the economic development directors in the region has a copy of the SEDS on his desk that I've seen several times, and this guy's got sticky notes all over the place. So I know that in that instance that they have really used the SEDS to their benefit when they're looking for outside funding.
While we're there, can you talk about what's happening in recent federal budget? Are these programs at USDA still contemplate, I know we haven't finished the budget yet, where are they in the budget process? Up, down, medium, whatever, you know?
They're down. What's been proposed in the budget for FY 2018, there were significant reductions being proposed by the administration in a number of economic development and community development programs. The existing funding right now today is a continuing resolution from Congress to fund those programs at the levels that they were funded in 2017. The continuing resolution expires tomorrow, so Congress and the President are going to have to agree to do something, pass a budget, or to approve a continuing resolution, which if they do will probably only go until February 16th. And then the process starts all over again. So funding is available dependent upon that continuing resolution at those fiscal year 2017 funding levels.
Thank you.
Okay. If we could go to page 7, please. The other thing I want to talk about and emphasize today is part of our page 7 in the presentation. This will give you an example of the project listing. These are the types of projects that other entities in the region have had in a previous project listing. And again, this will give you, kind of an idea of the types of projects we're looking at. They can be, capital improvements. They could be initiatives for workforce development. They could be initiatives for housing, whatever the case may be. But the project listing is also important because it, again, supports those applications that are being submitted for public or private sector funding.
So Ron, can the city apply for funds for road infrastructure?
Mm-hmm.
They could?
Sure.
Okay.
What would need to be in the project listing, or specifically for Carson City, in the project listing would be road improvements, and maybe you'll cite a number of streets, or you would cite those streets specifically for the project listing. That's fine.
Given what you said earlier about the SEDS part of this, is there a way to link that up with the road network outside of Carson to make it multi-jurisdictional and get the extra points? Or isn't there?
Yes, that's always possible. If you have a joint application, or you have an application, for example, with Lyon County on a project that, be it roads or water or sewer, whatever it may be, that also would be what you could cite out of the SEDS goal for infrastructure improvements. And again, that should strengthen the application. It's not a guarantee, but it will help strengthen any application. And again, I think with what's been occurring within the region, the regional collaboration becomes more and more important as time goes on, because one of the things the district has done, we've been working with NDOT to have NDOT do a transit study out here, and they've got an RFP that they have issued, and I believe they are reviewing responses right now, but they did look at a transit study for Washoe, Carson, Lyon, Douglas, and Story. And again, frankly, it's driven by what's happening at the Tahoe Reno Industrial Park, because that has become a major economic driver within the region. Any other questions you might have?
No, I'd just like to say, Ron, that it's a good board that we have. I happen to be the board liaison from Carson City, and you do great work. And I'm glad to hear that you're emphasizing this multi-jurisdictional aspect the way we are, because I know there are some people in this country who don't think that's such a great thing, and I hate to inject politics into the discussion, but I think, especially given the characteristics of northwestern Nevada and northern Nevada, or the whole state in many ways, that's a key, and we need to keep knocking on that door.
Where does Carson City stand in the multi-jurisdictional plan? How are we listed?
For the project listing, each entity is listed separately. So we have a section within the SEDS update on the goals and strategies. We have kind of an overview of the region, the economy, and then we have another section that is specifically for the project listing.
I guess, and maybe it's getting too far in the weeds, but how does Carson City, I mean, I know the SEDS project says if you meet a multi-jurisdictional plan, where does Carson City fit in that multi-jurisdictional plan? So if somebody's looking at doing that, where are we on that?
You're one of the 9 members. I'll put it that way. Again, the project listing is listed separately in a separate section. So we have all of the entities listed. We have references in other parts of the SEDS update that will reference specific situations in each of the entities. Does that kind of answer your question?
I guess so. Does Carson City, are we classified as rural for the Farm Bureau programs?
The eastern, yeah, you'd have to check with USDA, rural development, but there is a small portion on the east side of the city, or of the east side of the city boundaries, that would be eligible for USDA rural development. Because
so other than that, Carson City can't really take advantage of the USDA programs?
No.
Is that because of 50,000 or up?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Population.
Yeah, it's because of a population cutoff for their programs. But again, if you're applying to NDOT, for example, or if you're applying to federal highway, you're applying to FAA, whatever the case may be, you can still cite those project applications from the SEDS and from the project listing.
Okay. Brad and then Lori.
Ron, there's both loan and grant funds available through these program applications or through these project applications, correct?
Yes.
Do you know off the top of your head about what percentage of the funding that gets acquired is grants versus loans?
If you're looking at USDA in particular, then I believe their maximum grant now is 45% of the total project cost, and that probably would be decreased based upon what the jurisdiction's median household income is in poverty rates.
And is there an upper limit?
No, not that I'm aware of. I'm just saying if you have a $100,000 project application, you may get up to 45%, 45,000 as a grant.
Thank you.
So they are somewhat limited in, there's been changes over the years.
So just for the audience and people listening maybe, can you give a couple of examples of what Carson City SEDS are so that people can have an understanding of even what a SED is?
Okay, project listing I think is where we probably have to refer back to. And on my list here, I don't know which one of these on page 7 would be Carson City's, to be honest with you.
So the development office submits a project list, right?
Yes.
I used to serve on this one,
Right.
so I'm trying to
Right.
pull back a little memory here. But what happens is the board here kind of sets where we're going for our next 2 to 5 years, and then the development office puts it on frankly, an Excel spreadsheet that lists the projects and where we're going, and then we can potentially pick them up as a SED. Is that how the process?
Yeah. And they can be long-term, they can be short-term, because we all know that you may have a list and it may be somewhat prioritized.
Right.
However, projects will move up and down based upon availability of funding,
money.
project readiness, those sorts of things. So, we're not really asking the members to prioritize at this point, because we recognize that can happen in those projects and move up and down.
But the project had to be listed on a SED, so for us, it's just important that we make sure where we're going is at least listed to have any opportunity.
But I want to also say that even though you have the project list, and you have something that comes up that becomes important or becomes an emergency, that kind of thing, go back and look at the SED's goals and strategies, and you can cite the goal or the strategies to be able to perhaps score additional points on those applications. And I know that's happened in the case with at least 2 of the business and industry loan guarantees that were approved by USDA. They cited the access to capital goal.
I notice on your list on the SEDS is the Main Street Program and Redevelopment District. It would be a little tough, I would imagine, to get SEDS involved in that since it's Main Street. Tell us a little bit about the Main Street Program.
Well,
that's kind of new to the state, as I understand it.
This would be, okay, for example, we have at least one entity down in Douglas that's looking at doing Main Street, looking at doing another Main Street program, or part of that would be redevelopment districts. So if you have that listed, and then you have an application going in for funding for that Main Street designation, then that's where this project listing becomes helpful. You know, again, it's not a guarantee, but it is going to help those funding agencies to know that this is part of a multi-jurisdictional planning process.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, we interrupted you in your...
No, that's fine.
Probably.
That's fine. This is probably a better way to do it rather than listening to me. I'm pretty much done right now. I wanted to go over the SEDS and wanted to talk about the project listing, the importance of the project listing, and the regional collaboration that our board thinks needs to be done throughout the entire region, because we all know that issues that crop up do not stop at a county or a city boundary. And if you look at the TRI site and you take a 50-mile radius, I think there's 6 or 7 governmental entities that are impacted by what's occurring out there.
I'm going to go off the deep end here. Darren, I have a question for you, please. While you're walking up, it just occurs to me that maybe the Mountain House sewer extension would be a fit for being listed on this. Has that ever been a consideration, or do you see any reason why that wouldn't be a project that could be listed?
Darren Schultz, Public Works, for the record. Yeah, just off the cuff, Supervisor Bonkowski, I think I don't think we've ever looked at it and considered it if it would apply, and I think we could. Thinking about what's there, I mean, obviously we're going to have the intergovernmental coordination that would have to happen and help both counties. So obviously that's a big plus. Just in terms of showing the need and the requirement for it, I'm not sure, but I think it's a good idea to we'll look into it with Lyon County.
Okay. Oops, that would be a good piece to have in your project listing.
Darren, do we have any projects on this project listing page?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think the previous SEDS update, it was primarily capital improvements program.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Well, let me ask one more question.
All right, you can't go if you
Darren?
get some exercise getting up and down.
The Highway 50 East redevelopment, the greening William Street, would that qualify for funding? And would that help? Should it be on the list?
Yes, I think the way we've been doing it leading up to this is every project going through what the components are and does it qualify, does it apply, and to date we've determined that no, they haven't. Now, Highway 50 East, there's a number of components there that might be outside, and I don't remember. It was a couple of years ago when we put that all together, and I don't remember if we specifically took that project and said, is there something here that could help us or not? But we'll revisit it if we didn't.
Could I ask Ron to clarify what you said about how to make the Main Street thing, if we got interested in that, work multi, I wasn't clear on what you said, which is probably my poor listening.
You could list Main Street program improvements, and you could designate a street, for example, because when you get into the development or doing the work, you're going to have utility work, you're going to have private sector involvement because of doing storefronts, that kind of thing. So having it listed you could be making applications to different funding sources, but you still have it listed as a project listing.
Of course, unfortunately, we already did our downtown, or fortunately we did, but it's done.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Go.
Maybe just a general comment is when staff has the project list ready to send in to the Western Development, can we please have a copy? So I think Lee's office handles that, but I know they're just getting ready or may have just sent it, but if we could just have a copy, it would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Public comment? Anybody? I don't see any. Okay. Then thanks, Ron. All right. Let's recess the Board of Supervisors. I'll turn the gavel over to the Chair of Redevelopment, Supervisor Abowd.
Thank you. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Redevelopment Authority and let the record reflect that we have a quorum. And on to item number 16, public comment. Is there any public comment at this point in time? Seeing none, on to item 17, approval of the minutes of January 4th, 2018.
I move to approve the minutes of the Carson City Redevelopment Authority for January 4th, 2018 as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. On to item number 18. For possible action to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve the execution of an acknowledgement of satisfaction of promissory note, acknowledging that the second amended and restated promissory note executed by Richard Campani was deemed satisfied and paid in full on December 13, 2016, and to cause the deed of trust recorded against the business property to be reconveyed. So Nancy, are you going to take us through the logistics of all of this?
Nancy Paulson, Deputy City Manager. So in July of 2016, the board approved an amendment to the commitment agreement between Carson City and Richard Campani, and that provided that the promissory note that was executed by Mr. Campani would be deemed paid in full as of December 31st. And so as a result, we're just recommending that the board approve the execution of the acknowledgement of the satisfaction of the promissory note and the release of the deed of trust that has been recorded against the business property.
Any board questions? Any public comment regarding this issue? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board.
Okay. I think I'm going to deviate slightly here, but I move to approve the Board of Supervisors executed acknowledgement of satisfaction of the promissory note, acknowledging the second amended and restated promissory note executed by Richard Campani, who was deemed satisfied and paid in full on December 31, 2016, and cause the deed of trust recorded against the business property be reconveyed.
Reconveyed to the persons or persons entitled. That's a standard reconveyance language. I assume we're going to do that.
We can make that change.
I think that's usually on the recons. I know we got the lawyers back. He's shaking his head yes. Okay. All right. All right. Go. I'm sorry.
Okay. We have a motion and a second with that amended language. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. On to item number 19, final public comment. Seeing none, we will adjourn as the Redevelopment Authority and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. I'll turn the gavel back to the mayor.
The gavel passer. Okay, we're going to reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. We'll take up item number 22. This is a corollary and companion agreement, or companion item related to 18A that we just discussed with respect to the companion promissory note. In consideration of this item on this part of the agenda, we will incorporate by reference all the discussion that was had by anyone under the Redevelopment Authority. Is there additional discussion that has to be had by the board or by the public? Anybody? Seeing none, a motion's in order.
I move to approve the execution of an acknowledgement of satisfaction of promissory note, acknowledging that the second amended and restated promissory note executed by Richard Campani was deemed satisfied and paid in full on December 31st, 2016, and to cause the deed of trust recorded against the business property be reconveyed to the owner of record. Or as
to the person or persons entitled.
To the person or persons entitled.
Yeah.
Second.
There you go.
On the motion, there's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion, hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay. Let's public comment on this. Oh, wait a minute. We're already done with that one. All right, let's take up item 23 alpha, second reading with respect to amending the code for fences. Any changes? Anybody say anything since the first one? Mr. Plemmel?
No, Lee Plemmel Community Development. This is second reading of the ordinance. There's been no amendments or changes or comments since first reading.
Public comment on this issue? Everybody satisfied with what we're doing with fences?
This makes it easy.
I don't know if you ever get satisfied on those fences, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, motion's in order.
I move to adopt Bill number 101 on second reading, ordinance number 2018-1, an ordinance amending Title 18 Appendix of the Carson City Municipal Code to revise certain guidelines for the design of fences located within the historic district of Carson City.
Second.
Motion and second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, let's take up item 24. This is a presentation regarding epic rides. Who's doing this? Kurt, are you doing it? Okay. Neighbor?
Reinforcement.
All right. Go ahead.
Stephen Pote, for the record, Carson City Development Engineering. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm here to just give you an informational item on Carson City off-road epic rides. I have Kurt Meyer here with me, and Kyle from the Visitors Bureau is on his way also. So if you want to get the slideshow going, I can get that going for you. So today we'll go over what the event is and a recap of 2017, and then we'll move on to what to expect in this coming year for 2018. To start off, we've got a promotional video that the Visitors Bureau put together, and we can go ahead and roll that.
It's on the internet, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you have it on a stick. Let's go on.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. So I'll hand it over to Kurt Meyer to just give you some details about what the event actually is.
For the record, Kurt Meyer, event manager for the Carson City Off-Road. Ultimately, what the event is, many here are familiar with the event. This will be the third year in 2018 that we'll have our event. We started in 2016. The event is a 3-day event. We use downtown. On Fridays, we have the takeover downtown at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we turn the downtown into turn the downtown into an exposition area, start and finish and so forth. At 2 o'clock on Friday, we have what is considered the shorter course. It's a 15-mile course. They start downtown right in front of the Capitol, and they go off. They finish about 4 o'clock, and then we have a crit course for the general population. They can come and have fun with it. We call it the Clunker Crit. And then the pro riders, they do the crit course. We'll have music and so forth downtown that whole time. On Saturday morning, the event starts about 7:30 in the morning. We send off a 50-mile group and a 35-mile group. They return probably about 4 o'clock at the latest. We do awards and so forth, have music downtown, kind of shut down at about 8 o'clock. On Sunday morning, we have the pro riders go out and they do the longer course, the 50-mile course, come back into town, and we're usually done by about 3 o'clock down there. So that is an overview of what Epic Rides is here in Carson City. So, did I cover what you wanted to cover?
Yeah.
Let's jump in on some questions as we
Sure,
go along.
go ahead.
Thanks. Brad.
So the PowerPoint presentation that we received said that the course was going to be the same this year, but I assume that it won't be the 3 loops, that it'll be the longer course that we did 2 years ago, since we don't have the snow issues yet.
That's correct. I must have missed that in Stephen's presentation, but we are really hoping to get to the high country. Last year, we were faced with problems getting up into the high country because of moisture contact on the trails, also because of the snow and so forth. It does not look like we're going to have that problem this year, so we will be getting up into the higher elevations. And that course, just a general overview, that course takes us from Carson City up King Street all the way up to Spooner Lake, from Spooner Lake into the Marlette Lake Basin, and we get around up to the top of Marlette Peak and have some single track down to Red House, around Pipeline Road. Then we come down Secret Trail back into Ash Canyon and then back downtown. And that's a broad view of the 35 and also the 50 course. So,
Kurt, because of the snow last year, and there was some damage to some of those trails, has that been repaired?
Yeah, all the trails are open. I rode them all summer long, and we truly only missed by about 3 weeks getting onto those higher elevations because of the snow. So we were really close last year, and like I said, we look forward to getting up there this year. So,
As you go through, you're going to go through it on the PowerPoint here, but tell us what you expect in terms of attendance in this coming year.
Sure.
When you get there.
The first year we sold out at 600. Last year we sold out at 900. Some of the people chose not to come last year, just a few. This year we're looking at 1,200. Right now we had a community discount night and we registered 154 people. That's probably about 50 over what we did the previous year. So we're on track to get to 1,200 for sure. We're excited about that. There's a lot of buzz, and as we all know, hopefully as you all know, the first year we did this, we won an award at Interbike for the best mountain bike race in the nation. So hopefully we can stay in at that caliber this year. So.
And on the kind of the disappointing side, did those guys who got their bikes stolen, they ever get them back?
What I understand, I don't know if they got them back. What I understand, and Kenny might know, but we did do police reports with serial numbers and so forth, and they got a ring of thieves out of San Francisco that had been hitting events like this and found several bikes stowed away, and hopefully those people got their bikes back. And we do have some ideas about securing bikes this year to make it a little bit better. So
thanks, Kurt. Okay,
of
John.
course.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt. I just wanted to say that I had the joy of working with Rotary and Muscle Powered on the Sequel Trail, and they are looking good. Although I have to commend you. If you ride up there, you're a braver man than I am, but then I'm older. But can you tell us if you've had any indication of how the organizers look at this for the longer term? It's a 5-year contract, as I understand it. Are they talking like they'd like to go on, or has that been broached as yet?
Yes, with the city's cooperation, we definitely want to forge on. The Whiskey Off-Road, I believe, is in its 15th year, and they're getting around 2,000 riders every year. This year is also exciting for Epic Rides because we just introduced a new event in our series. The series will be 4 stops, and we're going to go, it's called the Ozarks, and we're going to go to Bentonville, Arkansas, and we're going to have that be the last stop of the off-road series, and that's going to be in October. So, and it's really exciting to branch out. So, and definitely want to keep the momentum going here in Carson City for sure.
Following up on John's question, you know, as much as I love the trails on the west side of town, we have a lot of other trails, and I'd love to see a portion of this race eventually get to go up Gonai Canyon over the top and down into the Virginia City foothills or the highlands. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as a potential course?
We really want to share the beauty of the Lake Tahoe, Marlette Basin, all of those types of things. I guess nothing's out of the question. There was some talk of possibly trying to keep people in town a little bit longer and do something with the V&T, getting people up and then back down on the V&T. It not necessarily have anything to do with Epic Rides, but possibly the city or the V&T could push that out, keep them another day. They could get on the train, put their bike on the train, get up to Virginia City, and then come down into Carson City like you just suggested, Brad. Those are ideas that I've heard people talking about.
I think it's a great idea. Frankly, as you and I know, Kurt, going up top of McClellan Peak and going over, it takes a little bit of effort to get through maybe some of those mines down there, but that'd be a wonderful ride. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, all right. You guys want to continue on? Mr. Horvath, good morning to you.
I apologize for being late.
No
you guys
problem.
did a great job breezing through a lot of items that I got caught in a conversation. Next thing I know, we're up. So thank
Well, I
you
know
for...
we're not that important, but that's okay.
No.
Don't worry about it.
I apologize.
Don't worry about it. Okay. Do you want to talk? I know we've talked a lot. You want to just give, I mean, for the public and a little promo, why don't you talk about what happened in 2017? Let's punch it up a little bit. Okay.
All right. Yeah, so in 2017, we had several issues from the previous year in our sites. Probably the biggest one was the impact the course had to the public, both the churches and local business. So last year, we decreased the size of the crit course, and that really opened up a lot of that area around the churches and local business, helped traffic able to get down there and flow through. And this year we intend to have the same crit course. We've also toyed with the idea of actually shrinking it down even a little bit more. So we'll be looking at that in the coming months as we're planning the 2018 event. Another issue that we were facing, as you guys mentioned, was the snow. Forced the course down into the lower elevations. As Kurt mentioned, there's no plan to do that this year unless, of course, we have snow again. It's nice to know we have that in our back pocket to have a course that has been tried and worked well. The preparation that went into last year's event was really important. Patrick Pittenger headed that up, helped facilitate getting everybody to the table. We had monthly meetings with all the different city departments that were involved and Epic Rides in the Visitors Bureau, and it really helped everything move smoothly and on time. And finally, communication was a big issue. A lot of citizens mentioned that they didn't even know the event was happening in 2016. We didn't get those complaints last year. We had public meetings. The mailers that went out were on Carson City letterhead, Carson City envelopes this year to encourage people to actually open it and read it. And also much increased effort on social media to try to get that information out there in a lot of different ways. So to talk about some of the beneficial impacts that the event has had on Carson City, I'll hand it over to Kyle.
For the record, Kyle Horvath, Marketing Manager for the Culture and Tourism Authority. I think this part right here is kind of the meat and potatoes to see if the city's investment and all the effort of the departments really did pay off. And as you'll see as the presentation goes on, it of course grew exponentially, both from a participation standpoint as well as an economic benefit. So the event grew 34% from the year before, so from 600 to 900 racers. 36% of the attendees, it was their first time to Carson City. And as you can see, that where the breakdown came from: Colorado, California, Arizona, and then, of course, Northern Nevada. And it's nice to see the support from the Northern Nevada riders, but it's the ones coming from outside of the state.
I don't understand what those percentages, I mean, tell me what they reflect on Colorado, California, Arizona, Nevada.
So of the 900 riders, 36% of them traveled out here from Colorado. 37% of those riders came from California, so that would be northern and southern. 9% from Arizona, and 26%, so a quarter of the racers were northern Nevada riders, so Reno, Carson City, Ely, all the way across the state. Utah actually is noticeably absent from that. But we're working on some marketing through the Bureau to Utah in particular about trying to get people to come across Highway 50 with their bikes and enjoy our trails, the rest of the year.
Kyle, could I interrupt you?
Yes.
Just a curiosity, were people allowed to make multiple choices? Because that adds up to more than 100%.
You know what? I did not do the math to see if that added up to 100%. Those were the numbers that were reported to us from Epic Rides in their rider breakdown. So yeah, you're right, Brad. You're pointing that out. Now, one of the numbers that I think is pretty accurate is the fundraising aspect of what Epic Rides provided. So last year there was $22,000 in fundraising for local organizations. That was Muscle Powered, the Boys and Girls Club, and the Northern Nevada High School Mountain Biking League, so the Carson High Junior Mountain Bikers. And in addition to that, the extrinsic value of Epic Rides is their marketing powerhouse. So again, in addition to the money that it brings into the community, the exposure that Carson City gets as a contemporary capital with a rich history and a great trail system, when I travel around for trade shows, go to other events and things like that, people are familiar with Carson City. They're familiar with it now through the Epic Rides race and through the marketing that Todd does. So in addition to what we do, content around it, there's a pretty sizable marketing effort that goes on through Epic Rides. And again, that gets the exposure into the mountain bike industry. One of the main things that I get asked all the time is how did you guys break in so quick? Because there are events that have gone on for decades longer that don't have the participation, that don't have the same experience, that have the same quality trails, but because they lack the marketing powerhouse that Epic Rides brings, they're still far behind than our turnkey event that's been able to produce such success in 2 years. So the marketing aspect of it is huge. So you can see Epic Rides on Instagram, 10,000 followers. There was 500 plus posts over the course of that week. And I'm not sure what that last number is right there. So we'll go next slide. On Facebook, they've got over 15,000 followers. There were 2.8 million impressions. So, the Visit Carson City and Epic Rides brand seen that many times, and a 6% engagement rate, which for industry standards is above average to have that many people chime in on it. The Visitors Bureau, our Facebook efforts reached 44,000 people. There were 34 posts, and our engagement rate was a little bit higher at 7.4. So that shows our followers are that much into Epic Rides as well. The ad equivalency for a 7.2 million person reach was roughly $86,000. That's what it would have cost us to pay for advertising to reach that amount of people right there. So that's earned media. That's not what anybody paid for that. The overall economic impact for Carson City was 1,000 room nights and a $2.1 million economic benefit. That's numbers that were provided by Arizona State University, who does the economic impact for all the Epic Rides events throughout the year. So that did double over the first year from what was estimated the economic impact from year one.
All right, so for this year, for 2018, we will be sticking with everything that worked last year. It was a really successful event, and we'll focus on stepping up that communication even a little bit more if we're able to, sticking with the monthly meetings we had for planning, just to make sure everything is on schedule. The course, as I mentioned before, the crit course may shrink a little bit, just because it really helped the community. And then also, as Kurt mentioned, the one negative complaint we had was bike theft. So we're going to give that some attention and pass around some ideas, try to figure out how we can help those riders keep their bikes safe. But other than that,
ask a question. In the packet, it mentioned parking their bikes in the city parking garage, and since the mobile unit for the sheriff's department is right out there, that would deter. I think that's probably a great idea.
Yeah, that's the number one idea that's on our radar right now as a potential option.
How are we doing, City Manager, Sheriff? I see you're here on our own internal planning, Public Works.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I'd like to do, first of all, I want to thank both the Culture and Tourism Authority and the EPIC organization, especially Kurt Meyer here. If you remember the first year, we had a little bit of a rough go in terms of the information flow, especially in regards to the crit course and when streets are going to be closed and so on. We learned a great deal from that first year, and I thought this past year, especially Kurt did yeoman's work in ensuring that the information got out. Rachel Schneider, our information management officer, she also helped a great deal in terms of being able to get all that information in one place, very readable, user-friendly, and we got the information out. So Stephen Pate here has got the lead from the city point of view in terms of planning and coordinating the event. We've already begun the coordination process. I'm very happy with it. I think we're going to have an even better third year. We would expect it to be not only a growth in terms of the riders, but also the non-riders, an enhanced street fair, so to speak, on South Carson Street there in the downtown, I think is going to be very important. If you look at, I believe Kurt brought up the Interbike. Interbike for both mountain bikers and street bikers is kind of the consumer electronics show for the bike industry. It had always been in Vegas. They've now moved it up to Reno. Reno is going to be an important destination for them, not only in terms of being able to support the convention, but now they're going to have access to all these world-class mountain bike trails that to a certain extent have been put on the map by the Carson City Off-Road. So I think we're going to see not only a growth in terms of the riders, we're going to see increased interest for the street fair type events. We've already done, from the city point of view, a very comprehensive look at the first 2 years, and I think year number 3 is going to be even better than the first 2 combined. So, gentlemen, I just want to thank you all for really a great effort the past 2 years. Sheriff, I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
I don't have a whole lot to add. The event brings in a tremendously healthy class of visitors into the community. It's very, very festive. We get very, very small amount of complaints, but each year, as Mr. Morano addressed, we adjust to those complaints and try and facilitate them.
Sounds like we're off to a good year. You know, Epic Rides, I know when it was started, some people had some misgivings about whether or not it was going to be a success. I think it's really put Carson City on the map in a very positive, good way. So I think all of us up here really appreciate what you guys do and what our city does for us. I've got a couple other, Brad and John will go from there.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Morano that I think the street fair is going to become a critical component of this event to keep people engaged while the riders are out on the course. You know, I volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club charity beer pouring event. We poured a lot of beer because obviously it was very hot last year. And then just to follow up, Kenny, earlier the mayor had asked if we had any information on the recovery of the bikes that were stolen. Do you have any information on that?
I don't. Thank you. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. That's why you see me looking down and thinking. Most of the bikes that were stolen were attributed to a ring that was actually following the Epic Rides loop, if you will, and many of them were recovered down in the Bay Area.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo what both the mayor and Brad have said and add this, that I encourage you all. You've done great work, year 2, now year 3 coming up. This is the kind of event, if we can keep the partnership with Epic Rides on the Carson City Off-Roads, that can really grow. I've been going for years, although less since I've been in Carson City, because I have to fly, to a bluegrass festival in Winfield, Kansas, a little town of about 15,000. And they get a lot of people there for this because it's been going on since 1972. I started going in '85, and I think I've gone 3 times since I got back here. Karen can tell you about going into the desert for Burning Man. It's a huge community. These things form communities in deserts or small cities and swell. And the economic development opportunity over the long haul, as you all, I'm sure, realize, is almost limitless. It can continue and continue and continue to grow. So put on your brainstorm caps and find other ways to add, along with the street fair, etc., things that will attract people who are interested in biking but not necessarily our participants. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody? Kurt?
I'd just like to add from the Epic Ride standpoint and from my personal standpoint that the city has been wonderful to work with. I mean, those guys doing overtime on Father's Day to facilitate the street closures and so forth during the pro race and everything. They're all smiles, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful to live here and to work with those guys, and I look forward to another successful year. Never had a problem with the city at all, and we're really excited about that. Todd actually mentioned to me that he's using certain aspects of what we do here in Carson City when he brings in new or talks to new communities. He's learned a lot from Carson City and the way we work together to ask for that type of help when he's asking other communities to host Epic Rides and so forth. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt. Thanks. All right, we got Supervisor Down.
And I just want to say it's a great sense of pride that I know a lot of the residents in Carson City and myself feel when we host this event. It's huge. And in the people that come through our doors at the restaurant, I mean, they're glad to be here. They're really impressed with the event and impressed with our city. So I think that it's a win-win.
So I don't know, since we're talking about what can we do to add on or make it even better, I really like the opportunity that it can be a family event. So anything we can do to add a small component for little kid bike races that just, little short ones or something that we can give a little medal to or something like that to really expand to the family-centered opportunity for biking and recreation would just be, I think, another wonderful addition to the project.
It's an excellent suggestion, Lori, because that's what keeps these things going. Right. People grow up and they just love to come back.
I missed that in over my 10,000 foot what happens, but on Sunday morning we do have a kids ride, and it uses the same course as the crit course. We have little stations throughout the kids ride, giving them treats, balloons, things like that, and it's been a success for the last 2 years, and hopefully we can build on that this year. So on Sunday morning, come out and see all these little guys on their kick bikes or whatever. It's really, really cool to see. After we send off the pros, we send off the kids. So.
And for the public, though, that's listening, so what's a crit ride, just so that people, is that a 1 mile ride for the little kids, or what are we talking about?
What we do is we had it for 45 minutes, and what we did is let them ride the same course as the crit course on Friday night, the pros. And a crit course is on the asphalt because ultimately, in the other areas, their downtown might be a little bit closer to a dirt trail. Well, because we start downtown in front of the Capitol, by the time they got to a dirt trail, we'd be turning them around and bringing them back. So I came up with the idea, hey, well, let's just share the crit course and send them through that on Sunday morning, and it's worked the last 2 years, and I see that it'll probably work again this year. So
Does it require a registration, or we can just make this announcement?
They can register during the event.
On site?
At the Epic Ride tent on site. We have a little booth set up for them to color their own nameplate and all that kind of stuff, so they can put that on their bike.
And is there a cost for the?
We asked for a
kids?
$10 donation, and that donation is ultimately goes on to a charity. So,
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, yesterday and this morning I woke up and I see the governor with cutting a ribbon for Apple coming into Reno, and then earlier I saw there was a on-road road bike race in Reno, and I'm thinking, we could do those things down here, maybe not do the Apple thing. And then Nick mentioned, that Interbike is coming to do their convention in Reno, and as much as I like to be competitive with other folks, I will tell you, that what's happening in the region affects all of us down here. And Carson City is now becoming a big destination point for a lot of people. We're now seeing a lot of people from Reno who, the buzz is talking about, let's go to Carson City, let's come down there to eat, let's go down there and do things. And so, I kind of put my Carson City pride hat, kind of turned it on the side a little bit and said, what's good for the region is good for all of us, and Epic Rides is a big part of that. It's a big part of what we're doing in Northern Nevada to make, to show the rest of the world what a wonderful area we have, and what a quality of life we've got here that we don't ever want to let go. So, thanks, Kurt. Okay, all right. All right, anybody else? I don't see any, so are we ready to recess for a moment and take up, file and take up Board of Health? Okay, thanks, folks. All right. We're going to be in recess. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes, and then we'll take up the Board of Health and go from there.
Call to order the Board of Health, whatever day it is, January 18th, 2018. May we have roll call, please?
Member Furlong?
Here.
Member Aboud? Here. Member Bonkowski?
Here.
Member Kroll?
Here.
Member Bagwell? Here. Member Barrett?
Here.
Chair Pintar?
Here, thank
Quorum is
you.
present.
And we have a quorum, thank you. I would like to entertain approval of the minutes from September 21. I'm going to apologize, I had some dental work, so my mouth doesn't work quite as nicely as I would like it to.
You're doing fine. I move to approve the minutes of
September 21.
September 21.
Okay, there's been a motion and second for approval of the minutes of September 21st, 2017. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
One abstention.
One abstention. Thank you. Motion carries. I guess we will start with the health officer's report. Let's hope she showed up today. Oh, look, here she is. All right. Well, let's see. We went from healthiness to a little bit of illness. Flu should be on everybody's mind, unfortunately. The year ended with an uptick in cases, about twice as many as had been seen the year before. The hospitals are all locally reporting pretty full beds, and a lot of it's due to the flu. I want to say we had a relatively successful flu vaccine campaign, more successful than the year before, which was kind of low, so it's better. The health department has also been working with the school district, and you may have received some information that the school district is sending out to their families. Encourage them to be vaccinated for the flu and sharing some of the tips about how not to get it. Unfortunately, most of the flu cases have been one of the strains, the influenza A strain, that the vaccine is relatively resistant to. So I would like to encourage anybody who thinks they have the flu to visit their healthcare professional and get tested and get on an antiviral, even if you've had the vaccine. The vaccine does make the flu less, but it unfortunately is not killing it off as nicely as previous years.
Susan, can you address the length of time that this flu is contagious? Because it seems to last and last.
Influenza itself has an incubation period that's anywhere from a couple of days to about a week. And so you're contagious in that period, and then you can have it for 2 to 3 weeks. You're considered contagious from an infectious disease standpoint as long as you have a fever or you have enough indelicately described snot droplets to pass around. And unfortunately, most of us go back to work or go back to school before we are not contagious anymore, and that contributes to the spread.
And what about the cough aspect, since it lasts so long? Does that increase the contagiousness of it?
Well, the influenza is primarily transmitted through respiratory droplets. And so when you cough, you're coughing out those little droplets of virus. Our immune systems typically are pretty good at decreasing the viral load within about a week, but your body may not completely recover. So it's hard to say. But I would say if you believe you have the flu, you're probably out of commission, which means out of contact with other people for about a week, maybe 2. You may remember we had a local outbreak of pertussis last late summer, fall. And anyway, I wanted to report that 2 of our health department staff, Dustin Booth and Ronnie Gallus, have done multiple presentations across the state and to various even regional levels on how to respond to a pertussis outbreak, and they've been well received and are now regarded as local, if not state experts on that. So we're very proud of them. Let's see. I've continued to participate in statewide meetings for preparedness. We will talk about that in some detail later, but I think that it's important that we realize that our county and our state need to be prepared for catastrophic events. Although we don't expect, for example, an outbreak of Ebola, it seems unlikely, the more we think about what we need to do just in case, the better off we'll be. I was going to present the yearly report on the sexual assault response team, but we have a very full agenda, so I postponed that for next time. If you have other questions for me or direction, I will take it at this time. I don't think that has to be, does that have to be?
Yeah, we have a motion.
All right.
I'll do it.
All right.
I move to accept the health officer's report.
As presented.
Motion has been made and seconded to accept my report. Is there any direction included with that at this point? Later on, you'll tell me what to do? Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. All right, we will go on to 29B, which is a presentation on public health preparedness by our preparedness manager, Jeannie Freeman. Jeannie, as you may recall, is a former state employee. She's accompanied by Carrie Rue, who we also were able to entice to Carson City. Jeannie has a PhD in nutrition and changed course a few years ago, and is now using her knowledge base to help us with preparedness.
We have a donut for you if you want.
I will say parenthetically that the snacks at the health department have a much healthier content now in the break room. It's a little discouraging, but
Mayor, I often say that my degree does not necessarily mean I eat better, it just means I have more guilt.
yes.
So, no judgment coming from this corner. So good morning, esteemed board members. Jeannie Freeman for the record. I'm the Public Health Preparedness Manager for Carson City Health and Human Services, and I serve in my role 4 counties. We have funding that comes in to serve Douglas, Lyon, Story, and Carson City, and that partnership, as we know, through multiple agencies is a consistent one that we have within the region. I brought with me today my colleague, Carrie Rio. She is our public health preparedness planner. And then my third colleague, Catherine Dew, was unable to be with us today. She is actually at the State Emergency Operations Center at a meeting with our Division of Emergency Management leader, Caleb Cage, as they are talking about the Citizen Corps, so the Medical Reserve Corps, as well as our CERT teams, our Community Emergency Response teams. So thank you today for allowing me to come and talk to you a little bit about what we do for you as your public health preparedness team and how we serve our community. So as I mentioned, we have the 3 of us. We do also work closely within the health department with Dustin Booth as our epidemiologist and helping to keep a track of different various issues that might be arising, considering the flu that we're having going on right now and any other kinds of zoonotic diseases or things that we might be having that are vector-borne. Those lovely little mosquito matters that we get to deal with every summer as well. So we work on those projects as well. So we have a quick video for you. One of the things that we do, and I kind of snagged this from Chief Slayman, but the Carson Proud, we really like to emphasize how proud we are of what we do here in Carson and how we serve our community. But I will ask that the video be played to show you our mobile medical facility. And this video was taken in partnership with the fire department using their drone, and also Rachel Schneider put this together for us.
All right. Just a minute, let me get it going. I'm trying.
If it doesn't play, I can explain it. How about we just stay in the picture and I'll explain it. So the mobile medical facility is actually a modular tent. It's 4 different pieces. This was an asset that we acquired through grant funding, and it's inflatable. So we were able to set this up in August. with the help of Public Works staff. And with about 10 to 12 people, we can set this up, and it provides an additional room for an additional 20 beds that can be served to expand our medical capabilities within the community. What's nice is that because it is mobile, it is set up in 2 different trailers that we have residing. Those trailers live at one of our stations, or one of our fire stations. We're able to get it out and set it up. It takes less than 4 hours to be in fully functional status. So these 4 pieces, we can combine them with mobile medical facilities that are also available with other regional partners. There's another one of these assets up in Washoe, and then there's another one down in southern Nevada as well. So if we needed to, we could expand them, and they attach through Velcro systems. There's also the capability, it has its own HVAC system, so it has the ability to be cooled or heated as needed. And we also have the ability to have negative pressure in the environment so that we can set up isolation quarters within this facility. So what's nice is that it rolls up. It's super fun to deflate. Next time we set it up, we'll invite you all to come and lay on it to help deflate it, because it's an interesting experience with that. But less than 4 hours to get it fully functional, and then we can bring in healthcare providers through the Medical Reserve Corps, which are providers that have been background checked and screened. They can also bring in we can partner this with Carson Tahoe Hospital to get it set up if we needed to do triage before people went into the hospital. So we can set this up in a variety of different settings and have it function for a variety of different roles. Technology, it always works when you want it to. It's kind of like when you take your car into the dealership to be worked on. It doesn't make the sound. So some of the things that we do, one of the aspects that we have access to is data related to our medically fragile population within Carson City. And we are able to access identified data during an emergency. So when we have a declared emergency, similar to what happened last January and February with the floods, when the declaration came from the Board of Supervisors that we were having that emergency, we were able to access identified data for those who are Medicare beneficiaries who rely on durable medical equipment. And so we were able to do door-to-door outreach with people to explain to them the importance of them making sure that they had additional medications, that they were prepared, or of what that evacuation would look like. We find that about 22% of our Carson residents, so almost 1 out of every 4 of our Carson residents, is a Medicare beneficiary, which means we're over the age of 65, and of those, 15% of them are on power-dependent equipment. This really helps us plan if we were to set up shelter environments, if we have an evacuation that's occurring, to be sure that we have adequate power supplies available, because when somebody's on power equipment, if they don't have it, then we're going to have a problem with them potentially becoming deceased if we don't have that capability. So we set a lot of time aside to plan for how we can support our entire community, not just those who are abled and able-bodied, to be able to access the different environments that we have. But also keeping in mind that if we have people in our community who need additional medical resources, how can we collaborate with our healthcare providers within the community to possibly have those folks within an area that would provide them with that medical support that we are not designed to set up and do in a shelter environment. We also have been working closely with our fire department and with our long-term care facilities and skilled nursing facilities to have discussions about evacuations and what that transportation would look like if we needed to evacuate a facility. So last year with the Voltaire fire that happened, we actually had a long-term care facility that reached out to us, and they were concerned that they might need to evacuate their 123 patients that were living there. And so we needed to put some plans in place and have some conversations of, we don't have a bunch of ambulances that are going to be able to show up and move 123 patients, but what would that look like? And turning to get some of those plans in place with our different healthcare agencies to make sure that they're set up to have some of those plans and not being relying on all the city services to be able to do that. Yes, ma'am.
So considering what just happened in Hawaii, how would we handle that?
We won't push a button that's not meant to be pushed. That's the first lesson to be learned with
Luckily,
that.
our technology is not as advanced, so we have to call each other with a phone tree.
And, and I say that in jest, but, the reality is that we live in a world that has some challenges, and we do the best that we can to prepare. We don't have bunkers set up in Carson City if we were to have a situation arise, similar to what happened in Hawaii. But we do work a lot with community outreach and talking with people about the importance of them being prepared for themselves. And it's important for people to have a certain level of accountability and to be thinking about their food supplies and their water supplies and how to take care of their pets and those types of things. And realizing that we do have a portion of our population that certainly struggles financially and struggles to even have what they need on a day-to-day basis. And so we do our best to account for that, but that's also why we do a lot of regional planning to really be cognizant of, here in Carson City, we don't have everything that we need to be able to support everything that would be in place, and that's why we talk about our partnerships, and we do that a lot. But we won't push the button that's not meant to be pushed.
As long as we're talking about news, there was an article last night about inspections of our long-term care facilities,
Yes, I did see that.
and pretty brutal.
Yes.
Do we know, are we watching what's going on in Carson City with that stuff? In other words, you know,
If I can kind of jump in there, and Jeannie knows as well, the long-term care facilities have been invited, and some of them do participate on our regional preparedness planning. The city, and Dustin, jump in, but the city does not have any direct inspection or enforcement responsibilities for long-term care facilities. Having said that, yes, that comes directly from the state, and unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately or unfortunately, we do not receive any information unless we request it directly about a particular facility.
Okay, thanks.
We do get information if there is a disease outbreak at a facility, but that's pretty much what it's limited to.
Just ask a question about the partnerships that you engage with. The National Guard, I assume, is one of those partnerships, or not?
The National Guard is a state partnership, and so if we had an emergency that warranted us stepping up and requesting assistance from the state, then the state would be able to request the National Guard. That is not something that we would do directly, but last year with the flooding and then the impending melting of all the snow, I participated, and my colleague Carrie participated in numerous different meetings and discussions with the National Guard, and we were working closely with them on mapping different areas of what that might have looked like in Carson City and how that might have impacted some of our more vulnerable neighborhoods and how we could have planned for that. So we do work with them when it warrants, but that is not an asset or a request that we would make directly. It would be one that the state would make. You're welcome. Next slide. One of the other things that we do in supporting our medically fragile communities is the Nevada Access and Functional Needs Support Team. So this year, Carson City Health and Human Services received a grant that we had applied for in order to develop this Nevada Access and Functional Needs Support Team. And this is modeled after California. California has a FAST team. We do not call it that here in Nevada because it would conflict with the other FAST team that we have. So we called it what it actually is this access and functional needs. And this can be somebody who has long-term hearing loss, might have vision challenges, somebody who might have temporary challenges. Maybe they broke their leg and they're in one of those push carts with their leg and so forth. So it's how can we, in all of our different preparedness avenues and our exercises and in different environments like shelters, can we make sure that we're able to set up and serve our entire community when it comes to this? We are really leading the way. Outside of California, we are, as far as I know, the first state to really be looking to address this with a support team. So this would be something that communities could request this team to come and help them in their shelter environments and their points of distribution, also with family assistance centers to make sure that we are able to communicate with those who may have language barriers, those who have physical or behavioral challenges as well, and how we can be doing that. So we're really leading the way with that. We were just down in Las Vegas last week for a partners meeting, and we were asked if we would teach that class down there, and we did. We taught it to 28 people within the emergency management field last week, and then in November we taught it up here in Northern Nevada, and we will teach it again on March 7th. And so we are working with the State Division of Emergency Management to offer those classes, and then completing our grant requirements to do that.
I want to brag a little bit about Jeannie because she's really been instrumental in applying for that, and she's from a state level, she's considered the expert in functional needs teams, and so we're very proud of her for that.
So I think many of you were familiar possibly with Taylor Radke, and before she had left and taken a different position, she had put in that application, and we are pleased to be implementing it on behalf of her advocacy in that role, and then also working with Andrea Esp from Washoe County's Public Health Preparedness Program in delivering these classes. So all of us have taken the time to get that training and to make sure that we're really working to implement to serve our community as a whole. As was mentioned, we do the flu vaccination clinics. We vaccinated of all the schools within Carson City School District. We went to every single one. We participated with Carson Tahoe Hospital, and during their employee flu vaccination clinic, we were there to do the family and friends of their employees. We also participated with the Carson City Health Fair for the employees, and we also did the community center for the seniors. And we did have a large number of people that came through and were doing the vaccinations. The numbers were lower than what we had hoped that they would be. It's still not too late for people to get their flu shot, as Susan had mentioned. One of the other things that we do see with these flu vaccinations is that people have really expressed their gratitude for us coming out and doing this within the community, because it provides a convenience that they don't need to go to their healthcare provider. Parents don't need to take time out of their workday to then go pick up their children and take them out of school. It keeps the kids in school because we can do an entire classroom in less than 15 minutes. So we can go to a school and be done with a school within probably about a half a day and be able to get through there and serve them in that sense. We have served as a model across Nevada for other districts that have wanted to do this within their schools. We have been invited to do this in Douglas County, and we've been asked if we would be willing to serve Lyon County in this way as well. So we're working with those partnerships in addition to what we do here in Carson. So that's a really great thing to do. Plus, it also gives us some face time with the community and understanding that if there was to be a disease outbreak that was an emergency, that we would be able and we would be ready and we're poised to be able to respond quickly and be able to serve the community in a wide variety of avenues, wide variety of venues. Next slide. One of the other things that we do is that there has been an adoption of regional evacuation tags. So this is a tagging system that can be used within our healthcare facilities, whether they're long-term care or skilled nursing facilities or even the hospital. And what would this look like if we were to do an evacuation? One of the wonderful things that we are, and I say this with a little bit of salt to it, but one of the things we're really excited about doing this year based on our grant requirements is a no-notice medical surge test. So we actually have to, with our partner region, exercise the evacuation of 20% of the beds within our region, and that includes our long-term care facilities, our skilled nursing facilities, and our hospitals. So we're developing that exercise right now, and this would be utilizing these evacuation tags. So we've gone out and done facility-specific trainings with many of our long-term care facilities within the Carson City area, and also with Carson Tahoe Regional Medical Center to train them on how to use these tags, because if we're moving somebody out of the Carson City area, we're moving them somewhere else. And so to have these regional tags be used so that there's consistency along with that, then that helps us be more efficient when it comes to patient transport, and we're better at tracking and not having the potential risk of losing somebody, but being aware of what that looks like. One of the other things that we've worked diligently on this year is bringing CASPER training into Nevada. So CASPER training, it stands for Community Assessment for Public Health Emergency Response. And even though it has the word response in there, really it's an emphasis on doing this community outreach, doing door-to-door surveys based on a sampling technique to identify what is our community's level of preparedness and how can we help them get better prepared. So we have the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They're bringing their trainers into Nevada. We worked very hard to get them to come, and we convinced them to do a training in Northern Nevada and to do one in Southern Nevada. So they're coming in March. March 20th, we'll be doing the Northern Nevada training, and March 21st, we'll be doing the Southern Nevada training. And as you can see, the green states on that map are the ones that have done CASPERS within their communities, and all the gray ones have not. So Nevada has been gray for a long time. We're very pleased to say that we get to bring them here and to look at this. But CASPERS have been done in communities for a variety of different reasons. You might be most familiar in the news with the Flint water crisis. They did CASPERS there to help them with that. They've done them down in Texas related to tornadoes and related to hurricanes. Our idea is to be able to do a CASPER to help us get better organized and better aware of what our community's level of preparedness is, so that we can do that outreach and get them spun up in a better way, so that we have the ability to support them better as a city overall. Other things that we
Jeannie,
do.
can I
Yes,
interrupt you on
sorry.
that? So if we're going to do a CASPER here, then do we partner, say, with the fire department to address fire as part of that?
Yes, so the CASPER has a variety of different questions that you can select from. So the city partners that we would want to work with, and that would include law, it would include the hospitals, it would include fire, it would include our long-term care, over our whole healthcare system. We would want to sit down and figure out which of those questions we want to utilize within our community. And then we would partner with the sheriff's office for their citizen group that they use. The fire has their CERT team. The health department has the medical reserve corps to be assisting us in going out and doing those door-to-door outreach. And it involves a sampling technique, so that it identifies, and it's not us picking certain neighborhoods to go to, but the sampling process helping us identify what neighborhoods we would go to. And when you go to those neighborhoods, you don't pick every household. It's a certain number that you go for.
Do you have a list of emergency response plans that are filed that are related to, say, certain infrastructure or geographic areas? So, for instance, I'm thinking with a dam, there's a filed emergency response plan in case of dam failure. It's got to be the same thing in geographical areas for mudslides, the wildfire interface area. Do you have access to that type of a resource, and does that help in this plan?
So when it comes to the different plans for the different infrastructure, as well as the regions of where we serve, we have access to some of those plans because we serve as public health preparedness, so we're really looking at how do those plans impact the overall health of the community and what that might look like. I think that your question would be best served for the Office of Emergency Management for Carson City. So Sean Slayman is our emergency manager, and Stacy Belt is our deputy emergency manager, to have that question as to whether or not they have access to all those plans, and if so, what does that look like, and have they been reviewed? But I don't have them directly when it comes to the public health side of that. I just have that partnership with the healthcare partners that we work with, and know and have access to their plans and information with their plans.
So can I understand a little bit more on the CASPER, that the objective, when you go into a neighborhood, you're assessing the actual residents' knowledge about what to do in a disaster? Do they know to come to the community center? Is that what the CASPER is about, so that you know how to improve the communications with the public? Am I understanding correct what you're trying to accomplish?
Yes, that's part of it. So part of it is to assess knowledge. Another part of it is to assess their actual level of readiness. So beyond their knowledge, do they have stored water? Do they have food? Do they have a communication plan? So how would they communicate with their family? Do they have an evacuation plan? Those types of things in place. And then it helps us figure out what type of messaging we need to get out and what type of resources we need to have available to us. And through that sampling technique, the idea is that it gives you a picture of not everybody in the community, but through that sampling, then you can generalize the results to your community as a whole, so that you can then make those overall arching plans. So of course, we would work with we would work with our Office of Emergency Management, so Stacy Bell and Chief Slayman, on this, so that there's an understanding and figuring out what we really want to know as a community, not just from a public health perspective, but what we want to know in our overall emergency response to the community and how we can serve them best. So we're not looking to live in a silo. We definitely want to look at how we can overall as a community be better prepared.
So is the hospital engaged in part of this too? I'm just thinking in terms of mass casualty and thinking about what happened in Las Vegas and
Yes.
that impact all at one time. God forbid anything like that should ever happen here. But that being the case, is the CASPER an opportunity to try and ramp that up and figure out how you respond in a catastrophic situation?
So certainly when we look at our healthcare partners, we would engage them in identifying some of that information that we want to collect, and all of the information would be shared. This is not proprietary information. It would be shared across the community, and really looking at how we can expand upon plans that already exist, and not just have those written plans, but exercise them, practice them so that we are ready, and not just, oh wait, now we have something happening. Did you read your paper? Do you know how to do it? But to function with that. We work very closely with our hospital here in Carson, and we have mass casualty plans in the region. In fact, we have a West Region mass casualty plan. It's something that we've been in discussions with our regional partners as of late because of the number of flu cases that we have seen. Are we ready to push that proverbial button and execute that plan and put that into practice? What does that look like? And we have found that there are already in that written plan some gaps that exist within the region, and how can we address those? So we're already having those conversations and planning that, because certainly we are the capital city. There is a chance for anything to happen in any capital city environment, and so we want to have those discussions and have them early. And we work closely with the sheriff's office, with the coroner, to talk about what it would look like if we had a mass fatality. And we have an exercise that's coming up soon related to a family assistance center, which they did set up in Las Vegas after the 1 October event. And one of the great blessings that we have within our community is that our deputy emergency manager, Stacy Belt, she worked the family assistance center when the air races happened up in Reno and the incident happened there. And so internally, we have some great institutional knowledge that is helping with that, and we're really looking at how that Family Assistance Center plan can be one that is regional, not just Carson specific, but regional with that, so that it wouldn't matter if something was happening in Reno or up in northern Washoe, could we go and assist? Or if something was happening down here, could they come and assist us? So that one size fits the majority of what we're looking for, sets us up to be better prepared overall. You're welcome.
Can I ask you one real quick question?
Yes, sir.
One of the biggest challenges we have, and Nikki was involved with us last year during the flooding, homebound seniors.
Yes. That's your question? You left the question mark at the end of seniors?
Are we communicating well with the senior center and addressing the needs or including those persons that are homebound? Very often they're seniors, they have no capabilities of surviving severe events on their own.
Yes, and one of the things that we did was we actually went and did some door-to-door outreach in the neighborhoods, because we had the identified data at that point in time, we had identified data of those who were on Medicare as well as Medicaid when it came to their durable medical equipment. And when we find those neighborhoods that have high numbers within them of DME, or the durable medical equipment, we also find that they have high numbers of homebound seniors. And so we were doing door-to-door outreach. We went in with our Medical Reserve Corps and literally knocked on every door and said, we have some information for you. We want to share some information with you. How can we help you to get us some of those assessment information? And realizing it wasn't statistical in that sense, but it was providing us a picture. And we had plenty of time that we got to share some wonderful stories with people, and we were able to do some of that type of outreach and FaceTime as well. But we are looking at how we can do that to a greater extent and be better in those efforts. But we do work very closely with the senior center. What's nice is that the triad meetings that you guys are having is also helping with that and getting the information out with the Meals on Wheels program and so forth. So we're really trying to get more and more inset into different areas. Even with the library, when they do, we want to do some outreach with mobile library programs and those types of things as well to be able to get some of this information out.
I know that the center has been in the past very, very protective of the Meals on Wheels address list, but I think that it's one of our most valuable resources when it comes to an actual disaster, that we have access to that. Therefore, we know where those people are that we may not be able to reach in a timely basis.
And we've also worked with different partners in the communities, for example, with the flu shots and stuff. One of the things that we did in Lyon County is that they had a variety of homebound seniors that their senior center was aware of, and they were willing to bring their community center bus, pick those people up and bring them out, and then do the vaccinations and then bring them home. And so we try to do anything we can to make sure that we're able to serve not just those who are able-bodied, but those that make up our entire community. And they're such a valuable part of our community, too. Yes.
And Nikki Aker, Director of Carson City Health and Human Services. And during the floods last year, we had Sandy Wargo, one of our public health nurses, that was reaching out to durable medical companies, and we were able to get extra oxygen brought down. And so we are forward thinking and thinking about those people that we may need to help.
And one of the other great things that we've done with the access and functional needs and really thinking about how we can serve our communities is we've made a great connection with Care Chest up in Washoe County. And this is an organization that collects durable medical equipment. So when people pass away, a lot of times they have walkers or wheelchairs or other resources that they can use that can be used by other people because they're still in great shape. And Care Chest has giant containers filled with durable medical equipment that is available, and they're willing to move it if we have an emergency and we need this in a shelter. Can we do that? So we are in the process of developing a memorandum of understanding with them so that we can have access and not have any challenges, and to be able to try to pre-position some of that stuff as well. So, and we're really thinking too with our access and functional needs of, how can we serve our entire community, our autistic community as well, and really working with subject matter experts to identify what can be some resources that we would have to make sure that we are not isolating somebody and creating a greater challenge for them than the emergency is already creating. So some of the other things that we do, we participate in our Emergency Operations Center. We serve as the healthcare liaison within the EOC. And with that being said, we would be receiving information from our healthcare partners and communicating that to the incident commander or to our emergency manager. And we would be helping with filling out resource requests on behalf of healthcare so that we can get those materials inbound so that we can serve them better. We also work with communicating with our healthcare providers, such as with the flu or with the pertussis outbreak that Susan talked about last spring. We send out technical bulletins. We have fax numbers, and we send them out directly when there is a need for those technical bulletins to be out there. We communicate with the public, so we've got our social media face as well as also putting out the print and working with the Visitors Bureau as well as the library and so forth, like when we had our heat wave that we had in August, and getting information out about making sure that people are not just drinking water but getting themselves to cooling areas and what those signs of heat challenges can be. And then we also have our Medical Reserve Corps serve for first aid booths. So we did the first aid booth for the new freeway opening. We do the first aid booth every year with Epic Rides. So we are engaged with the variety of different community events that are existing and continue to be a part of this community. So we look forward to being engaged in that. So other questions that you may have or anything else?
I'll just mention that the public health preparedness folks in Cape Town, South Africa, have to be pulling their hair out. They have 90 days left of water.
Yes. Yes. There are a variety of things that are happening in this country and around the world in looking at what that preparedness side is. And it's, again, really trying to take a look at how can we be better prepared as Carson City overall. And that's why in our role, while we sit at the health department, we are engaged with all the agencies across the city to make sure, and then we're having those conversations regionally to make sure that we don't become an isolated community that doesn't have those partnerships and those relationships developed early on, to make sure that they're there when we need them during an emergency as well.
So let's say we did have one of our long-term care facilities, well, I'm aware of one, so that actually needed to be quarantined and there's an outbreak in there and they need to segregate the patients or whatever, where actually would we be able to take wheelchair bed-bound patients? I mean, we actually have a plan that we have somewhere we can put 100 or 50. 50 will stay in the facility and you could quarantine it and you want to get the other 50 out. We actually have the ability to accommodate that?
So that's a great question. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, so CMS, have requirements now that all healthcare facilities are required to have plans for themselves. It's not left up to the community in which they live to be responsible for the movement of that. What would happen is that a facility, a long-term care facility, as you described, would be required to have what they call a continuity of operations plan, and they would also have transport plans. And they are required to identify other facilities within a certain region, a certain number of miles from their facility, that they can have agreements with to move patients. Now, a lot of times if we had, for example, an outbreak of flu or norovirus or something of that sort, they're going to do what they call an isolation and quarantine of their own facility. They're going to close themselves off. They're not going to accept any new patients. They're going to restrict who's going to come and visit and those types of things. And we do see a lot of facilities doing that right now, where they're limiting visitors to the time and the age and so forth to keep their residents protected as much as possible. If there was a need to evacuate a facility, we are working closely with our EMS here in Carson to how would that look. And a lot of these facilities have buses or have vans that they can move a variety of patients, where then EMS would be utilized to move those that have a higher level of need, so maybe bed-bound patient that would need to be moved. And then we also have partnerships and agreements with other long-term care facilities to utilize their transportation resources as well. But it is on that facility, on that long-term care facility or on that skilled nursing facility to have that plan in place. It is not Carson City's responsibility to have that plan, but to help facilitate their plan in getting those patients moved.
While I understand that, I'm just concerned, right? They can have a plan, but all of the facilities in Carson City are full. Right. So even though you say a certain amount of radius, there is nowhere, because every single one of the beds in all of the facilities are full. So I guess I'm just concerned that while I could have an agreement to take them from Highway 50 to Ormsby, or if they're all full, what do we do to accommodate? So again, they have a plan, but when there's an emergency, we're still going to have to help them, because I'm going to just second guess that they won't be the only emergency going on, and I just want to make sure we're prepared. They're still residents of our community, and I just want to make sure there's not a gap somewhere that we're leaving out, especially since we don't really get to communicate with them, or they're handled somewhere else. I want to make sure they're involved in any of the emergency plans.
And Lori, maybe if I could expand, and Jeannie will as well, one of the things that I participate on are some statewide planning mechanisms for exactly that sort of thing. So there's kind of a stair step, if you will. So it goes maybe from local city into a region, and then once it's beyond the region, then the state becomes involved, and out of necessity, it's northern and southern Nevada. But there are definitely different levels of involvement. So if in that scenario you described, it's likely that the regional partners would be activated first. But, as you say, okay, well, Reno's being affected the same way Carson is, then we would call Las Vegas and say, help us out.
So Supervisor Bagwell, that's a great question, because there are no facilities within Nevada that would be able to take 123 patients. They're not sitting there just twiddling their thumbs waiting for that to happen. And that's why when we talk about that radius, the CMS requirements, they have the requirements for them to have facilities within like a 25-mile radius and then have those outside of 50 miles. But if we have an emergency that is impacting Carson City and then it's impacting the region, we are going to be requesting that assistance from state, and then there will be those discussions. And it's not going to be, and I think that this is important for people to realize, is that it's not going to be an immediate matter. It's going to be this is going to be an over several days type of situation. And that request going up to the state, if we don't have the ability within the state, would make what they call an EMAC request. So they're going to spread across state lines. And this is why tagging people, identifying what their medical records are, having those medical records go with them and doing the tracking versus what we saw in other disasters within this country where people just were all over the place and there was no awareness of what that would look like. And certainly there are challenges between something that is a slow evolving emergency versus something that is coming quickly, like what we've seen with hurricanes and tornadoes and those types of things. We do the best we can with looking at what that would be, and this is why we have places like mobile medical facilities that allow us to set up, where we have partnerships, why we have spaces that we have pre-identified within our community, such as our MAC location or here at the community center, looking for where we can do those kinds of things. And this is why setting up a shelter environment and being aware of what are the needs within our community so that we can set up, even if it's meant to be an evacuation shelter, until we have the ability to move people somewhere else that has those medical capabilities. Because if we were to have an earthquake in this area, it's not going to just hit Carson City. It's going to hit the Sierra Range. And what is that going to look like? It's going to impact Washoe. It's going to impact Douglas. It's going to impact Carson. It's going to impact that whole region. And there are challenges. And unfortunately, with disasters, we do the best we can to plan, and we set everything up as best that we can. Unfortunately, with disasters, because of the disaster nature, with an earthquake, we will have people that succumb to their injuries as a result of the disaster, not because of anything that we didn't try to plan for and do the very best that we can, but we continue to learn from these emergencies that happen across the country and around the world to help us be better prepared for what that might look like. And Carson City has made incredible strides with what we have done for preparedness, with what emergency management has done in the partnership with all the different agencies. What the city manager's office has done in supporting those efforts has been incredible. And Carson really does, in a lot of ways, lead those efforts, and really has been a model for other communities across the state for what we do. Yes, sir.
Jeannie, so you were just talking about regional evacuation tags for patients and trying to keep their medical records with them. And I, of course, immediately think, when you say medical records, of a manila folder. Then it occurs to me that you're probably talking about digital medical records. Is that the case? Is it digital? And is that actually incorporated into the tag itself? Is there a mechanism by where the regional tag, so you're tagging a patient, does it have a provision where you can actually have the digital records included within that tag, like a credit card? And is that even legally possible because of HIPAA? Can you kind of go into that and explain that a little more?
Those are great questions, because when you think medical records and you said you think manila envelope, it might actually be that way, because we have electronic medical records, but not all systems, not all healthcare facilities are on the same medical record system, so they can't necessarily talk to each other as much as we would like to think they could. So it might actually be a manila envelope, but that's why we aren't just putting somebody out on the street and hoping that the next EMS provider that drives up will pick that person. That this is a transport of information along with the patient, and it's with one healthcare provider to another healthcare provider. So there are no challenges related to that HIPAA concern and so forth. But when there are major disasters, there are a lot of times requests for HIPAA regulations to be relaxed, so that there can be that sharing of information depending on what that declaration is. And certainly presidential declarations, there would be discussions with the legal offices and those liaisons to have that conversation related to EMTALA and the laxing of healthcare providers and pre-screening of healthcare providers and so forth. So there's a lot of different things that go into place. If it was something that was an evacuation from a Carson City facility, it wasn't warranting even a declaration with Carson as an emergency, but we just needed to evacuate that facility because we had a fire or something of that sort. There's going to be the HIPAA regulations that stay in place, and those records are going to be transported likely in a manila envelope with that person, because there is not the ability at this point in time to scan it onto a card of some sort and have it go with another system, because the systems are not consistent, unfortunately. I would like to say that they would be, but they are not.
Maybe it would help to describe the tags in a little bit more detail. I know it's kind of going into the weeds, as it were, but they're different colors, and then there's different, let's say there's a little oxygen symbol in that circle that person needs oxygen. So we're not talking in-depth, 10 years of medical records sort of thing. It's what problems are that person have, right?
So the triage tag is set up with the same kind of color system that EMS uses out in the field when they're transporting patients. So you have a red, you have a green, you have yellow, you have black. And along with that, it's a tag that has the patient's name. It has their primary contact person. It has a place for the healthcare provider to write medications, or if they're on durable medical equipment, or if they're on oxygen, and what that might look like, so that when they get to the facility, they know what their dosage is and so forth. So there's some very rough information that is collected with that. Then there's a piece of information off of the tag that when that person is evacuated from the room, another piece of the tag goes on the door so that they know that that room has been evacuated. And the tags on all of them say who transported that patient and where that patient was transported to. And then the facility that is sending the patient keeps a piece of that tag so that they know that patient, where they went and who transported them. And the receiving entity also keeps a piece of that tag so they know who received it. And the transport agency keeps a piece of that tag so they know that they transported from one facility to the other. So there is multiple different levels to keep track of that patient so that they are not lost. And as much as we'd like to go with electronic, unfortunately during a lot of emergencies, the first thing to go are our electronics. So being able to do it on a paper form and training on that paper form is important. And so wax pencils become valuable and these paper tags become valuable. And then we also have on the tags, they have these adhesive portions as well, so that a person's belongings can go with them, and then they are tagged, and it marks who transported them and where they went and where they came from. And so it's a multi-layered system, and yet it all sits on one tag, and it has perforations, and you just tear, and then you keep the records and they slide in, and we have these paper versions. And I know that seems archaic, but I'm really happy I had a paper planner a few weeks ago. So, when it comes to different things. So, sometimes paper, it might seem archaic, but at the same time, it also, it works. And so what's nice is that we have that, and that those tags are water resistant with the way that they're designed and so forth. So it's a good thing. Other questions? I feel Supervisor Barrett, I felt like you had a question earlier. Oh, no? Okay.
Let me just say, this has been one of the best presentations we've had. You're very articulate.
Oh, thank you.
Give us a good feeling, I think, about, that we're prepared. Good answers, too.
Well, we're working hard, and just so you know, we are just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to Carson City. All the different agencies in Carson City, from Public Works to the fire, EMS, and our hospitals, and then our private partners as well with our businesses and so forth, all of them play a role in it. So we're just one piece of that to try to bring it together, but we love working in this community, so thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. We will go on to item...
You have to have a motion.
Oh, a motion for presentation, discussion, and possible action?
I don't think it's just this action, just to give them direction. I don't think we need it.
Okay. So I can go on? We'll go on to action, item 29C, to adopt a resolution approving proposed regulations for food establishments in Carson City.
I have a disclosure.
There will be a disclosure by Supervisor About.
NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from participating when I have a disqualifying conflict. In my private capacity, I'm an owner of Cafe at Adele's. The decision we are making here today on this item will affect all restaurant businesses the same. No one entity stands to gain or lose any more than any other. Therefore, because this matter will affect all restaurants, including Adele's the same, I do not have a disqualifying conflict of interest, and I will be voting on this matter.
Thank you. I will introduce Irish Owl, who is from the District Attorney's Office, to begin the discussion.
Thank you. So before we begin, I first want to point out that I pulled the materials online, and you probably all noticed that the staff report was separated kind of strangely. The entire staff report was on there, but so the public knows if they want to access it, the first page of the staff report is on page 1, and the last, well, page 2 of the staff report is actually on the last page, but it is all there, so that's very fortunate. Let's see. So that these are it's a pretty lengthy revision. Sorry. I want to go through some procedural stuff that we did. We actually had 2 meetings prior to this, 2 public meetings. They were sort of informal. We posted them and everything, but they were for the stakeholders. We sent out letters in October and in, was it November? October and December, about 300 letters to all the food establishments so that they would be on notice that we intend on proposing these changes. We solicited feedback from them. We changed the draft between meeting 1 and 2, and now we're here. From here, we are going to, assuming that you approve of the revisions today, from here we're going to go to the Board of Supervisors after we prepare a business impact statement. So that will be on February 15th. And then from there, we would do second reading, and from there, it would be the State Board of Health. So there's a lot of procedural steps that we're taking. But, okay, so I'm just going to summarize basically what we're doing because it is so long, and then we'll go into it a little bit more in depth as far as each category. So the major categories that we're changing, or that we're proposing to be changed, is that food establishments will now be classified on risk levels. There will be 1, 2, or 3, depending on what type of food they're serving and what type of establishment they have. From there, we have the addition of a certified food protection manager requirements. That's directly correlated with the risk level. From there, we have some additions to types of food establishments that are allowed, and we are changing or proposing to be changed the way the grading system works. There's probably going to be a lot of questions on that, I am anticipating, so I'm just trying to go through this quickly. We have a bunch of definitions that are added, and a lot of different little changes that are consistent with the overall changes that we're trying to make. Do you guys have specific questions? Do you want to go through categories? There's a lot of potential material, so I want to steer it in the direction that you would like.
Dustin, what were you going to add? Just respond to questions?
Respond to questions, or if
Okay. All right. Then, Lori, shall we start with your?
So I really want to, first of all, thank staff for all of their efforts. I know this is a lot of work to pull from several different states, other jurisdictions, best practices, reaching out to the community that will be involved in this, and I think it's pretty evident that we're close to the home run because the room isn't filled with. I'm just saying it's really a pleasure, right? When you look, you go, we must be close. So a couple little points that I want to still work on is developing the section in here that deals with a food establishment that will need a reinspection. And so we have a fee structure, and currently you had a date frame, and I really want to work on that. I think it's still too long that we have proposed here, and I know that in advance, I asked you if we could shorten that so that, again, the objective is to get the food safe, right? So you want to get the inspection, I believe, sooner. so that the restaurant's grade can improve and that can happen. So can we go over a thought process maybe that we can shorten that in this?
So I did draw up some proposed changes to that. I don't have them, of course, for late material today, but I figured there might be several changes, so I would prepare those in between now and first reading to the Board of Supervisors. So on page 36, section 3, if you want to tell me when you guys are there so that everyone can follow along. It's basically the top of the page, section 3. We're shortening that time to 5 business days. So a reinspection will be triggered after a health establishment gets more than 10 points. And we'll explain more in a few minutes about that, but what we were concerned with and what we received concerns that were expressed from the restaurant owners was what's going to happen between when they have a lower grade potentially and having the reinspection and that length of time. So that's why we thought the 5 days would work. Dustin thinks that is going to work for his staff, that it's feasible, and that's what we plan on doing.
Is that 5 days?
Instead of
So
15.
on 3, it'd be 5 days in both places then?
5 business days.
5 business
Yes.
days?
It's actually 10 calendar or 15 calendar days, but we're going to change it to 5 business days.
Okay.
Can I ask a question related to that? Sure. Inspection and reinspection. Dustin, you were going to establish a website that all of this goes on. How quickly will the second inspection be done within that fine? If it's 5 days, will it go up that day, is my question.
So, for the record, Dustin Booth, right now we're working with Carson City IT on a daily upload of that information so that it would be updated. It would extract it out of our system and then upload it to that website on a daily basis. That's our current process.
And then subsequent to that, if you have to close an establishment down, what will your policy be? I mean, just mark it as closed in the middle of a shift? How will you handle that going forward?
So if an establishment is determined that it needs to be closed, it is the responsibility of we give the notice to the permit holder, person in charge, that there are circumstances here that you need to stop your operation, and we put it onto them that they need to stop that operation. And then, depending on what the situation is, there may be, they may need to take more rapid action than other situations, but it's up to them to make sure that they close, and we would follow up with them that they close the establishment because basically we've suspended their permit and they don't have the right to operate.
Can I just jump in real quick? I actually meant to add something to the re-inspections because we considered the potential probability that someone says, hey, I have a B and I'm going to keep it that way and I don't care. I think that's unlikely to happen. But in case it does, we want a re-inspection to occur. We want a request for a re-inspection to occur within 15 days. So there's a time limit established for a food establishment to request that. So back to page 36.
If I could interrupt you, Iris.
Yes.
Going back to Karen's question, I'd like to follow up with Dustin. Going back to facilities being shut down, they're currently serving food. How does the inspector and the restaurant operator make a determination of whether the people that are currently in the restaurant get to finish their meal, or you're going to go around the restaurant and collect the food that has been served and basically take it away from the customers? So can you walk us through that process to kind of tell us what circumstances would lead you down each path?
So once again, when we go in and do an inspection, it is we work with the permit holder or the person in charge. And if it's determined that they need to close, it is the person in charge or the permit holder's responsibility to do that. and it's their responsibility that, we could give them advice about, well, what do we do with those individuals there? A lot of times what people will do is that they'll go in and they'll leave the customer. It depends on the situation of why they need to be closed. But a lot of times they'll close the door so they don't accept new customers, and then have other customers, finish their meal and leave. But a lot of times, if it's determined that if they haven't been served the meal, then usually that meal wouldn't be served. Even though they've placed an order, but if it hasn't been put on their plate, I mean, it's not our responsibility to go and pull plates off of the tables. It's put onto the onus of the permit holder to go through and, because they don't have a valid permit to operate anymore, because due to the circumstances at the establishment.
No problem.
So I agree. So Iris, what you're indicating is they can, if they pay their reinspection fee, we'll guarantee them a 5 business day, but you want to put on not to exceed, though, at 15 business days, we're still going to be there. But they can have the inspection within 5 and clear their grade.
Yes. So it would read something like a request for reinspection must occur within 15 days, and then the next section would say the health authority will perform a reinspection within 5 business days following receipt of the payment of reinspection.
Okay. So if they pay it on day 1, you'll be back in 5 days.
Or less.
Oh, right. Maximum of the 5. Okay. Good. And then, I'm sorry. May I? And so then the real issue, I think that I heard from some of the restaurant owners and things in town, is really dealing with probably the manual and the process itself during the inspection. And so we've had a little bit of discussion on the draft inspection form, and one of the thought processes here is to consider the right-hand side is your best practices, just things that food establishments should do, but don't necessarily really create a risk factor for the health.
Sorry, for the record, Lori's referring to the food establishment inspection report, and there are copies in the back if people are interested in it.
Okay. And one of the thought process we had discussed is removing the 1-point values, because again, that's really a training or a best practice model, and you hate to lower a grade on somebody over a single point value creating an issue. And so what are your thoughts on, should we change those to zeros?
Yeah, so I mean, I think as we look at our inspection form, that it's in 2 phases. It's one side is red, the other side is blue. The red are considered high-risk factors. The blue or low-risk factors are good retail practices. That putting point values to the high-risk factors is important in regards to that. And having no point values to the other side is fine. They still need to be noted that these are good retail practices that you should be practicing and keep, and doing, but put no point values to them. That is something that can be done.
Question related to that. Mm-hmm. On the high-risk factors, if it's something that is corrected on site while you're there, do they remain dinged for the violation, or is there a credit back in terms of points given if it's corrected on site while you're still there during the inspection?
So in regards to the to high-risk factors and corrected on site, so our field guide, which is we called it a field guide, is a manual that talks about how we mark our inspection sheets and what we look for, and in that we have discussion. We'll have try to do the best, because there's lots of scenarios that can, but to look at that, how do we address corrected on site? So part of the one of the things about corrected on site is there I want to see that it's fixed immediately, but was it just a rare occurrence that occurred today, or has this been a chronic thing that's potentially been going on for a long time, and the establishment wasn't monitoring this situation? And so say for instance a refrigerator temperature that when we were doing an inspection we found it out. They have not been monitoring that temperature. They have no log, even though that they stopped that and destroyed food. It was still something that they weren't monitoring, and that food was at was at temperatures that could promote bacterial growth. Compared to say somebody that has a temperature log and that morning it was fine and we were there that afternoon and the temperature was out, showing that it was a short period of time. And so we have in our guide we'll have how to work those scenarios out.
And also in the manual, do you address, say you have a sewage backup? Women's restrooms are notorious for that. And so it's corrected, within minutes or whatever. But do they have to call the health? How does that procedure work? Do they have to call the health department? Does the owner have to call the health department, notify them that there was a problem, but it's been fixed? Just elaborate.
I mean, good communication between the operator to the health department is great, but a lot of times those small little sewage backups occur every single day, and it's in the normal course of business. What we want to see is that the operator's taking care of it and not ignoring that, and that's something that sometimes we'll get customer complaints that they claim that it's been going on for days, and then we're coming out following up on a customer complaint. But as long as they're really those short-term things. Communicating with us is great, but they need to take that active managerial control and take care of that situation.
So on the a little bit on the grading cards, one of the thoughts that when I was listening to some earlier questions, so let's say you did determine that you were going to suspend the permit of someone and you're going to do it now. So they're going to go to closed status. You would give them a new letter card or grade or whatever. Are you not going to post it? So let's just say your guy's in there and he had an A up on the door and now I'm inspecting and he's getting a D equals you're closed. Are you actually going to take the A card out and put the closed card in?
Yes.
I think. Clarify that.
So first, looking at the last year's calendar year 2017 inspections based on our current system, there were 4% of our inspections, so 28 inspections that fell below 89 points or less. So it's very rare that we close an establishment, but if we did have to go to a closing of an establishment, we would have a sign that says you're closed, or we would allow the operator to put their own sign out there saying, closed due to maintenance issues, or closed, whatever they want, so that just to let the public know that they're closed. But we would have a sign that's available, and that current card would be taken down until a reinspection was done and then a new card issued.
In terms of the grades, well, the closure speaks for itself, obviously, in some sense, but are you telling me you're not going to put up the closure sign? You're going to let the owner put up the closure sign when we give an A, B, or C if they're not going to be closed? And how would the public know that it was closed for this reason if they just put closed due to maintenance and on their own?
I mean, so I have a sample of a closed sign. So we would have that sign that can be posted. But in the past, when we have closed establishments, we didn't actually have a closed sign. We would work with the operator to put a notice on the door, but we've never really had this closed sign before. It was always an inspection sheet that we would post that they would say that they closed, but we would work with the operator on what they would. The reason why they were closed, but if they wouldn't put a sign up there, we would put a sign.
I'm still confused. I thought I heard you, maybe I misheard. You said you'd either let them put up the sign or you'd put up the sign. Did I get that right?
So the purpose, I think what you're saying is not to be punitive in the sense that, yes, the restaurant's being closed, but does the whole world need to know that it was because of an inspection? Is that the question?
No.
Can I?
Yeah, it sort of is, but what I'm saying is if you're going to put up an A, B, or C, and the C, a lot of people are going to go, oh, I don't want to eat there. And then if you let them put up a sign that just says closed due to maintenance, and there's no reference to why except just a generic maintenance, they're not going to know that's the reason it's closed, and the day it opens, they'll go back in there without having any knowledge of it was or why it was closed until you release that information to the public, right?
So can I just jump in really quick? So basically, the way I understand it's going to work is, these are sort of rough draft, that's why we didn't include them with materials, but this would be an A, and let's say that somebody gets it closed. The closed would go where the grade card normally goes, but on the front door of the establishment, there could be another grade card saying closed, or they can put their own sign up saying closed. Now, this card is going to be posted somewhere in the restaurant where this grade would normally be, that's visible, so if someone walks in anyway, they would see it. And also, online, it's going to be available, and it's going to be available as public information. So if a restaurant wants to say something else, it would sort of be misleading if they did that. Now, if they say closed to maintenance, maintenance can mean so many things that's up to them.
Can I ask you what you think is appropriate?
So, in the regulation, so what's the most important piece is where is the letter grades posted? And so, isn't it supposed to be on their door? Or the visible, I don't think we want to let people get all the way into the restaurant, into the back bathroom or something to see the grade.
So basically, it needs to be where somebody, when they walk in, we didn't put any specific, like that it has to be on the door because some doors are solid. So, but the way we wrote the current code is it's the inspector would, between the operator and the inspector, they would find a place as somebody enters the restaurant that the grade card would be posted. If an establishment is closed, depending on the type of door that they have, putting a closed sign there would be one that would make more sense on the door where their A card was when you opened up the door to notify the public. Now, so I guess once again, we don't close restaurants very often. So I guess my personal experience, we don't have a lot of times where we've had to close and post something on the door. And so in previous times, we've always worked with the operator that you need to close, and we can either leave the sign that because we never had a sign before, that we can either leave our note on our inspection report that you're closed, or we would allow you to put a sign out there, but you need to be closed is what we would work with in the past. Now that we have a card system that talks about closed, we would work with the operator of where that sign would go, and if they were closed, most likely that sign would be posted on the door at that point. Whereas normal operation, the A card may be in the
permit or something.
Yeah.
Can I ask a brief question of the board? Because seems like a couple of you are going in a direction. Do you want the placard, whether it says A or closed, doesn't matter, anywhere within that range, posted so that it's clearly visible from the exterior of the restaurant, whatever, within 5 feet of the front entrance or something?
I was just going to ask a similar question, because some municipalities do have a requirement that it be visible from the exterior of the restaurant.
Yes, yes, ma'am. That's the point of my question. If you're looking for that, then between now and first reading, we can definitely incorporate it. It sounds like that's where a number of you are going here.
It needs to be visible
from the exterior within 5 feet of the front entrance or something like that.
Wherever else you go, it is.
Yeah.
You know, so.
That's fine, and if that's what you choose to recommend to us, then I can add that in for the first reading.
I'm still confused, though, because we have an A sign, we have a B sign, we have a C sign. Where it goes is important, but we have a closed sign, but we don't require that be put up in the same manner, in the same place. Well, it's got to be put up somewhere, Dustin said, but the owner could put up his own sign on the front door saying, we're just closed.
So
that doesn't make much sense to me.
What everybody was just saying is that we probably will incorporate, if you all choose to recommend that to us, we'll incorporate language to say where the sign goes. I know the permits have to be in a certain place, but those aren't visible from the outside necessarily. So one consideration.
The other consideration is, because everybody's outside entrances are different, exposed to the weather and so forth, what we're going to put them in to receive that grade card. So that's going to be another thought process.
Some would clearly have to be in a weatherproof placard
Correct.
that is mounted or something.
Right.
But it certainly seems to me like most of you are going towards, you want it clearly visible from the exterior, within 5 feet of the front entrance or something like that. Okay.
Absolutely. The public should know prior to entering. I don't want them to get in there, like I said, do something else in the restaurant. Look, it's a C and I've already eaten half of my... They have a right to know, and I just think it should be visible from the exterior, and I think that our grade card goes in that no matter what it is. So it isn't an option for them to ignore the closed. And like you said, I don't really think it's a big issue, but if they are closed, they're going to get the closed placard that goes in there and replaces the A or the B or the C, whatever it is.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I was just looking for uniformity on that aspect.
I had a question in flipping through. How does a mobile unit do that? The same way? They put it on the outside?
So in regards to a grade card? Yeah. So, I think our current language talks about the grade, needs to be next to the permit. Most of them wouldn't put it on the outside. I think where I've seen some other languages, they've talked about that it has to be like you're either on the outside or when they open up their lift top thing, that it's right there when they're serving the customers. You're like the point of sale.
I kind of agree with Kenny, and I want to be very careful that we don't go too far. I agree with John, there has to be consistency, but I also am not interested, as Dr. Pintar said, in being punitive. I don't want to penalize a business that's been in business without having a problem for 20 or 30 or 40 years because of a one-time incident. So I think the goal here is to make sure that our food establishments, if there is a problem, that they correct it, and they correct it in the least amount of time possible, and then we get that re-inspected and show everybody that it's been corrected. So, trying to find that balance, I commend you guys because you guys have put a lot of work into this, and I think you've done an excellent job, and I think we're almost there. Mm-hmm. We just need to iron out these last few details, but I just think we need to be very careful that we don't go too far with this.
And given that, you already know of my concerns regarding the release of the information, not only the A, B, C, or closed in the window, but that the restaurateur has an opportunity to say, I'm challenging this. Now, if he waits and says, I'm not going to challenge it for 2 days, and then I'll call him up and say, I'm going to appeal. So, and I looked in here, I'm not sure I understood, maybe it's not in here yet. How are we taking care of that so that the release...
5 days.
Well, yeah.
You want me to explain it?
I know
I'd
the
be happy
appeal
to.
process has the 5 days. But I'm talking about at the time, if the person challenges it, does that information go somewhere so that it reaches the public as well? That, sure, you're closing them or you're giving them a C. I'm probably more concerned about the C at this juncture. And you're giving him a C, and he says, I'm appealing. That's not right. Is that going to go out at the same time to everybody?
So we did speak with Supervisor Barrett about this previously, and what he had expressed to us was a request for some, as he said, like a checkbox or something to be near the grading card that says this matter is being appealed or a hearing has been requested. And we have no problem with that request. Also for the online information, adding something to that extent.
If the guy doesn't appeal, that's fine, and he appeals later, then he's got to accept those consequences. But yeah, that's good. So that'd be on the A, B, C. Obviously not on the A, it's not needed. No, thank you.
As long as we're not adjudicating things out in public. I mean, I think it's fine to have a box that says, hey, I'm going to appeal this, but I don't think you need to have anywhere where it says, these are reasons why I'm going to appeal it, and this is why you're all.
Right. No.
No.
Can I further, so now I'm going to side just a little bit the direction with not being punitive. So if you come in and inspect my restaurant and I get a B or a C and I don't agree with it and I check the box, I could get a hearing within 5 days. Should that not hold that in abeyance unless it's a closure? That's a different reason. You have a whole bunch of other regulatory authority because there's the true health risk. But if I want to appeal my B or C or something, and you're going to have a hearing within 5, whatever that result of the hearing is what the grade will be and the inspection will be, if that makes sense to me. So if I appealed a B and I won in the appeal, then my grade's an A. So since that happens in 5 days, why would you post the B while it's under appeal? I just think since we're only doing a 5-day appeal process, then you post at the end of the appeal so that we don't even have, that's the punitive part to me. Why be punitive if they won?
Except that there's 5
Yeah,
I gotta jump in.
Oh,
real quick.
yeah, I
Sorry.
do too.
Just so that you guys are saying 5 days. The 5-day is the request for appeal if a place is actually closed, like if a permit's going to be suspended or revoked. But normally, for other types of hearing requests, it would be 10 days. And what we were suggesting was to follow the procedure that's already established in the administrative code. We can. Basically, it's an informal discussion. The person requests an informal discussion with the actual inspector. If they do not like that decision, then they can request a more formal discussion with the health authority, and from there, that's the final remedy. Now, if they disagree with that, what they would have to do is go to file a motion for a preliminary injunction or something of that effect, because if that's the final remedy that's allowed for in the administrative code, that would be where it stops. But that's still an informal discussion plus a more formal conference with the health authority. So there's two basic hearings, and then from there they can go to the court system if they want to do that. Now we can do something different if you'd like to do that, but I would have to write that
Can I make a quick recommendation as well, Iris, if you don't mind? Because I think it's also important. I mean, none of us want to be punitive to a business owner, especially a long-time business owner, and we understand that. And I think you've heard from Dustin, we're actually very thoughtful about how we enforce the code. However, in the end, we are talking about public safety and ensuring that no foodborne illness makes its way into the community. So I think from the city point of view, if we did an inspection and we had knowledge that we thought, establishment A had unsafe practices, and we held that information back, even because it was pending an appeal of that, I think we're potentially putting the city at risk, because now we knew something, we didn't disclose it to the public. I know it's anecdotal, but in nearly 4 years that I've been here, and all the complaints, which haven't been that many, but every complaint almost almost 100% from restaurant owners about an inspection has not been a complaint about the actual finding. There's actually very little dispute about what the finding was. It's more the way, how it was delivered and how it was handled, which is equally important, and I'm not minimizing that. And I think in terms of how we connect with the community, that's an important part of being a regulator, is being able to deliver the bad news in an effective, in a thoughtful, and in a way that you're actually going to help the person get into compliance, as opposed to just whacking him or her over the head with the code. So I would recommend that if we do have that information, that we go with it. I mean, if it's going to get appealed, great. But I think if we have information, it is something that is very important that the public has it as well.
This begs a question, though, Mr. City Manager. You and I had a conversation about something else. You've taken us back to pass-fail. I mean, you either close them or it's safe. And when you get to A, B, C grades, if a guy's going to appeal a C, that's going to go out to the public, and he's still going to be open. So that's all I'm trying to do, is give the other person a right to say, the restaurateur in this case, well, I don't agree with this, and that's all. That's all I'm trying to, so let the public knows, well, the inspector says it's a C, the health department says it's a C, and that carries a lot of weight. But the restaurateur says, well, I don't agree with this, so keep coming to me because I got a C, but I think I'm an A. And that's all I'm looking for. I don't have any sympathy for somebody who's not doing the job right when they run a restaurant. But then, from what you're saying, either we close them or we don't close them. It sounds like, because you say they're just griping about the way the inspector did his job, right?
No, and again, I don't want to minimize it, because we have had one or two cases where the inspector potentially could have been more constructive in delivering bad news. And we've worked very hard to maintain a consistent level of professionalism. And I really want to applaud Dustin, who has really done, I think, a phenomenal effort during this whole process, along with Iris, in reaching out to the restaurant community as we've gone through the code change here. But, I mean, I think people understand a letter grade, and I think that's why it's important that, you know, we do have that letter grade.
And do you think it's also a good idea, as I apparently do, as I obviously do, that both sides of that story be told that he's just a restaurateur, he obviously has a self-interest, but he's saying, I don't agree with it. Is that a problem for, it doesn't seem to be a problem just to add that, short of, you know,
no, and I think Iris already covered it.
So that's totally fine, but I want to, on the form or somewhere near the form of the letter grade, whatever is most efficient for Dustin to do. But here's the thing. So based on the grading card, categories are going to be low risk and high risk. Previously, with the low risk factors having points assigned, they were 1 point. Even with that, only 4% of establishments got a B last year. We're talking about a really small number, something like 28 out of 333 or something like that. So with the new grading system being no points for the lower risk factors, it's really going to be that much harder for an establishment to even get a B. So right. So if they get to that point, then we really do have to start considering, or not start considering, but we need to look at that balance and say, hey, we can't go too far in the other direction, because then we're not doing our job of protecting the public. And that's what we want to do.
I agree completely. I'm just trying to provide an outlet for the restaurateur to register his gripe publicly.
Totally happy to do that. But anyway.
On the form where they sign for it, we could add just a checkbox, appeal. and be done, not be done with it, but then that would be entered in your public record system that triggers the appeal. Right, and it'd be on the inspection form. So I think we can accommodate this by just adding it on the form itself. I request review or appeal or whatever technical language. I can live
If I'm
with
not
it.
mistaken, what John's asking for is also on the letter, on the placard itself, that it would have a little box that just says pending appeal.
Yeah, it doesn't affect the one that's closed. I mean, he's probably obviously going to appeal, but he's closed. But it's the one who gets the C or the B. And you're right, 4%, but 4% is still 4%. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. So I just want them to have a public record that everybody in this town or a visitor, if they're paying attention, can realize, well, I mean, probably if a guy gets a C, I'm not going to go there whether he appeals or not.
That's fair.
Is whether you can make the font on this any smaller.
It's actually this size.
Oh, good, because the one
It's
I
just the way
got.
it's printed out.
Oh,
It's
readable.
It's designed to be on a legal page, and when
Oh, good, because my glasses didn't work well.
Also, I want to echo what the city manager has said, that you guys have worked very hard on this, and I commend you. We're at the point of nitpicking down to the last, as Lori said.
And I just want to say that you have gone out of your way, because I'm experiencing it from both sides. And I think you've really done an exceptional job of reaching out and discussing and listening, and that's huge. So thank you.
Are there any further questions? And perhaps I will go a little out of order and ask if there's any public comment on this issue.
There's no public left.
I know, what? That's how it goes. Sounds good, doesn't it? So I believe this requires a motion, does it not?
Yep.
Yes. Who wants it? Yes, please.
Resolution number?
Resolution number is 2018 BOH-R1.
B08R1. Wow.
H.
Oh, H, health, okay. Sorry, I thought 8, okay. So I move to adopt resolution number 2018 BOH-R1, approving proposed regulations for food establishments in Carson City and recommending they be taken to the Board of Supervisors and State Board of Health for final approval, with the changes discussed today of a 5-day right for reinspection, the cards be visible to the exterior for the grading system, and a 0-point value for the non-critical inspection report.
And there was a 15-day...
The 15-day, you already, right, 15-day maximum.
I would request that the motion just state that the changes be per our discussion today, because I think there are other things that have been discussed that we've asked to be included, and that would be all encompassing.
One was the appeal thing on the inspection form in the card. That's fine. Well, I just want to make sure, though, that we're clear, too, in a motion that, you know, which things, did we all agree on everything that was discussed that we want? If that's fine, then
We
I'll
have
put
two
it.
more shots at it, too.
Yeah, that's true. So, okay, all right.
And this is just to adopt the resolution.
A motion to adopt the resolution has been made and seconded. I will ask for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries, and this will now be taken to a first reading on February 15th. Is that what you...
So a business impact statement is going to go out tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
And then the time period will start running, and
Business impact, and
then
then...
the first reading will be February 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both again.
So can I ask, the business impact then will include the changes that we made today? If it's going to go out tomorrow, you're ready on the business impact to make these changes so they know?
I will be doing that this afternoon.
Oh, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I will again ask for public comment. Speak now or forever. All right. We will adjourn until further notice. I just wanted to make an understanding, the Board of Health meeting, I'm sorry, Nick. The Board of Health meetings have not been pre-scheduled yet, have they? No. But we're still planning on having them every 2 months?
Every quarter?
Every quarter.
Every 3 months.
Unless we have an emergent.
Yeah, unless we have
an emergent issue.
So we're decreasing the number. So they're going to be longer.
They're going to be more effective.
Yes.
Like today.
Meeting adjourned.
Why don't you guys just stay up here? We're going to take up, we're going to reconvene the Board of Supervisors for the last item 33, non-action items from Board of Supervisors. Yeah, Supervisor Abad.
I would just like to mention that we're trying to wind down the flower basket sponsorship campaign through the Greenhouse Project. Those baskets don't appear by magic that adorn our downtown. And so you can go on carsоncitygreenhouse.org to download your form. It's $225 for one basket and $400 for two. That cost includes Casanelli coming around and watering the baskets and maintaining them throughout the season. So just so you know that. But we have about 10 to 12 baskets left to sponsor, and I'd like to get that wrapped up.
Just wanted to mention I'll be headed down to Las Vegas next weekend for the Safari Club International convention, and starting in 2019 it will be moving up here to Reno for at least 3 years. And last year when I was down in Las Vegas for this convention, the Mandalay Bay, which is where it was being held, was being picketed for having the convention there. So this year they've moved it to the convention center, so it'll be interesting this year when we go down to see if there's continued picketing. That would never happen. I cannot imagine that ever happening up here. So we'll welcome them because it's a huge economic impact.
You okay? Count me in for a flower basket.
You already did.
I did?
I took care of it.
Oh. As usual, I'm the last to know, man. Let me. Yeah, well, I have to give her a pat on the back. A couple things. This Saturday, the RSVP and the Veterans Coalition from Western Nevada College and also Veterans Coalition is having a Reach for Zero event. It's kind of a fundraiser plus a veterans event for raising money to help alleviate suicides in the veteran community. That's at 10 o'clock at the Governor's Mansion. Goes till about 1 o'clock. They'll have a paella luncheon and everything. And while we're on Saturday, a Medal of Honor winner, a guy named Doc Ballard, a medic from Vietnam era, will be here in Carson City. He's been moving around, so we'll see if we can get him around to see folks. And I think he's going to try and get over to the Reach for Zero event. And I'm supposed to meet with him sometime Saturday. Also, the State of the City will be on the 31st. This time, the State of the City is going to be a little bit different. All the board will be there, obviously, as well. But we're going to have a little video of things going on in Carson City. Instead of some listening to me talk for 25 minutes or so, we're going to have a video of the good things that are happening in Carson City and some comments from people around the community and our staff members. So we're going to see how that works. We're working with Rachel right now to produce that, so we'll see. If not, you're going to hear me talk for 25 minutes. So
Be prepared.
Be
Have
prepared.
an alternate in
Be
case.
prepared, yeah.
That
Be
means we'll
prepared.
just pray for the video.
Pray for the video. All right. And then next Friday, I think I'm going to be on NPR. Not this Friday, but next Friday I'll be on NPR for 10 minutes talking about the state of the city.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, so let's be in recess until 1:30.